How's it going, folks? Welcome to another fun at-home table read. Tonight, we are jumping into another unmade Superman film. Like, I need another one of those on this page. I always find these Superman scripts fun. This one was apparently, the story was by Ilya Salkind, who produced all the other Christopher Reeve movies. So I think this is a little bit of like him trying to kind of push Superman back into the mainstream. So we'll see what it is. I'm sure it's going to be nuts. It's going to be insane. I have no doubt. So let's jump in and start introducing ourselves.
I'm Angie, and I'm reading action description.
I'm Curtis, and I'm going to be playing Clark Kent / Superman.
Hello, I am Anne, and I will be Lois Lane.
I'm Logan. I'm going to be Brainiac.
I'm Johnny. I'll be Jimmy.
Mike. I'm going to be Perry White.
It's me. Hi, I'm Jen, and I'm Kosmo.
Awesome. Well, Angie, take us away.
Superman Reborn, story by Ilya Salkind, Mark Jones, and Carrie Bates. Screenplay by Mark Jones and Carrie Bates. Fade in, a black screen. Stark, silent, foreboding, until we begin to hear the theme music from I Love Lucy.
Lucy.
Static, then the dum-de-dum-dum from Dragnet.
It's my job. I'm God.
Static, then another familiar voice is overlapped, fade in and out.
Rochester.
I'm coming, Mr. Benny. I'm coming.
Bang, zoom, to the moon, Alice. To the moon.
Static, gunshots, and a tinny orchestra playing the William Tell Overture as we hear the classic opening to The Lone Ranger.
Fiery horse with the speed of light, a cloud of dust, and a hearty hi-ho Silver with his faithful Indian companion, Tonto.
We pull back from the blackness and become aware we have been inside something dark and foreboding. The interior of a complex eye. Artificial, geometric, mechanized.
The daring and resourceful masked rider of the plains led the fight for law and order in the early West.
We pull back still more to reveal in the eye is the part of a face obscured in shadow, the face of some kind of robotic machine, expressionless, sinister, soulless.
Return with us now to those thrilling days of yesteryear. The Lone Ranger rides again.
Cut 2. Deep inside Brainiac's colossal space arc. The eerie lighting gives the carnivorous interior a dark, futuristic Gothic look as a 3-passenger jet tram zips along one of the many tubes that network their way through the miles-long vessel. The soundtrack of the Lone Ranger episode reverberates eerily through the ship.
Wame cap now, Kimosabe.
Closer on the open jet tram, carrying Kosmo, human but with an extraterrestrial kink or two. On his left shoulder, he wears a 2-inch-high frosted glass epaulette. A compact robot drone sits in the front.
Good thinking, Tonto.
The jet tram whooshes away from us down the transport tube. Cut to a curved corridor. Kosmo runs through in a desperate hurry. The Lone Ranger broadcast echoes here as well. Cut to the command bridge, subdued lighting, more high-tech alien Gothic, and eons beyond anything the human mind could conceive. Several more drones, gleaming and pristine, go about their tasks at various stations. Kosmo enters out of breath to face his master, Brainiac. A fearsome, towering robot machine, a monstrous head of an alien, metal, coiled python thick arms, a mainframe massive enough to repel a tank, metallic skin glistening like black chainmail. If Satan himself ever decided to forge a machine out of molten depths of hell, it would look something like Brainiac. Continued. To Kosmo's dismay, the robot is still captivated by a row of floating screens, all of them showing the Lone Ranger episode, still in progress. But the reception is marred by intermittent zigzagging static. As Brainiac makes adjustments in a futile attempt to correct the problem, his alien servo motors mesh, hydraulics hiss. Kosmo takes another step and holds the 3 computer wafers.
I consulted the bioscans.
Under stress, Kosmo's deep-rooted fear of Brainiac occasionally manifests itself as a stutter. The robot's head swivels toward Kosmo. The cold black eyes seem to pierce through him.
There's no doubt now. 3 of our cities could sustain them.
No response. With disinterest, Brainiac turns back to his screens. Frustrated, Kosmo looks toward the live monitor screen on the far side of the bridge. No sound accompanies the image.
Please look at them. They're only children.
The screen shows damaged bridge of the ship. Alien children broadcast an SOS, frightened, ragged. Several children holding crying babies. A little girl clutches an alien rag doll. The sound is muted.
They haven't very much time.
Kosmo punches up more buttons, and now sound accompanies the distress signal. On screen, the alien boy leader steps up.
After the slavers took all the adults, they sent us adrift. We're cold, hungry. Our power is nearly depleted. Is there anyone out there? Does anyone hear us?
Push him tight on Brainiac as the robot speaks. His voice cold, metallic, like nothing we've heard before.
Establish contact, Kosmo.
Kosmo sighs with relief and keys up the appropriate console.
Your signal has been received.
The children rejoice, exchange whispers, babies cry.
Who speaks to us?
I am Brainiac.
Brainiac's robotic fingers press an intricate array of buttons. On the monitor screen, the red blip appears over the alien boy.
Have you room to take us aboard? We'll be no trouble.
Another screen now displays an anatomical views of an adult male and female of the boy's species. Technical data accompanies rapid slides of their planet, its culture, civilization, and technology. In seconds, the robot confirms its reference banks already containing all known data pertaining to the species. The screen goes blank, close on Brainiac. As he turns back to the children on the monitor screen, a robotic finger is poised over one particular button.
You will be no trouble.
Kosmo's face goes white with terror as Brainiac pushes the button.
No!
Brainiac's colossal space ark, the mother of all motherships, a vessel of staggering dimensions, the ark fires a thin surgical beam at the puny disabled ship drifting in space. The disabled ship is struck by a beam and it explodes violently. Millions of fragments spew out into the void of space. Back inside the space ark, Kosmo looks with shock at the floating wreckage on the monitor.
Why?
My function is to learn. Their species had nothing to teach me.
But the babies and the children.
My function is to learn.
Brainiac turns back to his screens. With the distress signal eliminated, the static is gone. The Lone Ranger comes in clearly.
We forgot to thank him, Pa. We didn't even find out his name.
Kosmo turns away, sickened, hastily leaves the bridge.
Son, that was the Lone Ranger.
Brainiac's space ark pulls away from us.
Hi-ho, Silver! Away!
Cut to a dramatic flying point of view day. We are the eyes of Superman as we zoom through billowing clouds. As the clouds begin to part, we see the spectacular panorama of Metropolis skyline spreading before us. The point of view zooms down toward the cityscape and arcs past a towering skyscraper under construction. Several hard hat workers on the higher floors wave at the passing man of steel. The point of view nimbly zips through the steel and glass canyons of the city to finally zero in on the Daily Planet building. Cut to the Daily Planet city room day. Clark Kent enters. The city room is more high-tech these days. BTDs, modems, faxes, employees going about their business.
Morning.
They're all far too busy to acknowledge Clark's arrival. Suddenly, a slight earth tremor shakes the city room. Papers fall from shelves, coffee cups spill, etc. Clark tenses up as he silently gauges the situation. Then, to everyone's relief, the tremor quickly passes. Still wary, Clark continues toward his chair as the reporter at the desk continues to type furiously.
Aftershock, one word, too.
Before Clark can respond, we hear
That's 2 with a hyphen.
Jimmy Olsen has just walked in, his camera slung over his arm, a cup of coffee in one hand, a donut in his mouth.
Morning, Jimmy.
Relax, Mr. Kent. It's nothing. If Superman hadn't popped the pressure out of the epicenter yesterday, we would have been hit big time, like a 7.8.
8.9.
On Clark's desk is the morning Daily Planet. The headline, Superman diverts undersea quake by Lois Lane. As Clark takes his seat, he notices the untouched mail on Lois's desk, checks his watch.
Lois out sick?
Yeah, she called in, but the chief's not talking. Something's up.
Why don't I give it the old college try?
Clark navigates across the busy newsroom. Jimmy follows.
For all those listeners out there still quaking, here's a little something just for you.
The song Shake, Rattle, and Roll plays from the desktop radio. Inside Perry White's office, Perry White shouts into his phone as he glares at the supermarket tabloid on his desk. The cover story, Superman on secret Daily Planet payroll, says anonymous insider. Clark knocks and enters. Jimmy slides in right behind him.
Why do you think he's out there defending truth, justice, and the American way? He works for the planet, all right? The planet Earth. You sleaze peddlers will be hearing from our lawyers.
Perry slams down the phone, notices Clark and Jimmy.
That's why he's the chief meister.
I saw a story yesterday, Mr. White, at the supermarket. It got me kind of angry too.
You, Kent? Angry? That I'd pay to see.
Perry presses his intercom.
Don't go anywhere. I have a message from Lois. Don't call me Chief Meister. Not you, Fran. Put the 60 Minutes people through now. Line 2.
From Lois, sir?
Now Perry uses the tip of his cigar to set the tabloid on fire.
She needs Superman. Top priority. Their place under the sea, she said. 5 o'clock.
Whoa. Those Superman have their own place? How long has this been going on?
Don't be ridiculous, Jimmy.
Both Perry and Jimmy look at Clark strangely.
What I mean is, that's not very likely, knowing those two the way I do.
Perry drops the flaming tabloid into his wastebasket. Fran, his secretary, enters. She looks pale.
Last time she sounded this serious, she broke a page 1 exclusive with a banner headline. Do whatever you do, Kent, but get Superman in the loop. Go. Get out of here.
Smoke wafts upward as Jimmy points to the ceiling alarm.
Chief?
And take the Junior Brain Trust with you.
Clark guides Jimmy to the door. They pass Fran on their way out. Mr. White, you were on line 2. You just got off the phone with the 60-minute people. Halfway across the city room, Clark and Jimmy hear.
Great Caesar's ghost.
Punctuated by the piercing shrill whistle of the smoke alarm and the sound of spraying water sprinkles. Cut to Brainiac's space arc, slingshotting its colossal mass across the void of deep space. Inside the arc bridge, Brainiac at his command station, an array of miniaturized alien specimens arranged on the rack that floats in front of him. On the floating screens, CNN, news broadcasts, documentaries, all reflecting a wide spectrum of human behavior. World War II footage, astronauts on the moon, Woodstock, a flaming Buddhist monk, a Nixon press conference, Steve Martin's arrow trick, Jim and Tammy Baker, a Madonna video. Kosmo stands by, accompanied by a pair of drones.
You were right, Kosmo. Such behavior patterns defy classification. We will continue tracing the transmissions to their source.
Brainiac holds a specimen caplet and injects it with a blue fluid. The tiny specimen inside instantly petrifies.
Proceed with the final selection.
Kosmo pushes a button. 4 floating screens zoom forward and enlarge. The Colosseum in Rome, neon-lit Tokyo, Superman flying over Metropolis, picketers in Washington, D.C. The 12th level intelligent instantly analyzes each city on screen.
You disappoint me. Antiquity and overpopulation I have observed in an abundance of other worlds.
The Rome and Tokyo screens suddenly disappear.
Allow me to
Your first two
elaborate.
choices are rejected. Continue.
Kosmo proceeds. The robot doesn't notice his growing uneasiness.
The third city is guarded by a unique specimen endowed with a wide array of abnormal abilities. The fourth is the power locus of this planet's largest dominion. I shall now chart their.
Out comes a strange scope device as a panel slides away in the robot's torso. He places the petrified specimen beneath its lens.
Unnecessary. You choose.
Kosmo steps up, steels himself. He knows he's being tested.
The abnormal specimen might be of passing interest, but the city itself, Metropolis they call it, would appear to offer little promise. Take the fourth city.
The device extending from the robot's torso begins to glow and hum as it begins analyzing the specimen beneath its lens.
Your input confirms my faith in your judgment.
The Washington screen vanishes. Kosmo silently sighs with relief.
Where you see limitation, I see limitless potential.
Only the screen showing Superman in Metropolis remains.
How were his abilities acquired? Why do the others depend on him? How will the city function after I extract him? What secrets will a dissection reveal? You see, Kosmo, so many possibilities.
Now the device projects a magnified hologram into the air, a single cell from the alien specimen under the lens.
So much to learn.
Brainiac remains immersed in his study of the alien cell. Without a word, Kosmo turns and leaves. The drones dutifully follow. A woman sits in a tiny home, walls of translucent glass, furnishings sparse. We are in the quarters of Kryana, Kosmo's mate. Kryana sits before a small screen. It is showing news footage of Superman in flight over Metropolis.
Faster than a photon, more powerful than a fusion engine. With a single bound, he can fly.
Cosmo, what have you done?
Camera pulls back out through the glass wall, and we realize Kryana is all of 2 centimeters tall. We continue to pull back to reveal her home is the glass epaulette on Kosmo's shoulder.
His strength is beyond measure.
My darling, I believe you're reading my line.
Whoops.
His strength is beyond measure. He is impervious to mortal harm, virtually indestructible. And he believes in truth and justice. He will fight to the death to save his city.
Kosmo enters his workshop. A drone, Vincent, moves to pull out a chair for him. Roberto, a slightly larger model, comes forward with Kosmo's dinner tray.
As our people died for ours.
He is a champion, Krina. A warrior who has never met his match.
He has never met Brainiac.
Trust me, if anyone can rid the universe of this curse, he is the one.
You realize what will happen to us if he should lose. You must be prepared.
Krina reaches out to him, pressing the palm of her hand against the inside of the glass wall. Cosmo turns his shoulder and gently touches the outside of the epaulette with his giant index finger.
Superman doesn't lose, my darling.
Cut to close on an LL plus S, branded in the metallic C by heat vision. But the initials and S emblem are eroded, tarnished, put there years ago. Pull back to reveal this is the giant daily planet globe atop the planet building roof. It is night, and under the sea stands Lois Lane, and she looks better than ever. But tonight she is troubled as her fingers toy with the stunning pendant that hangs from her neck. It holds a beautiful setting of unearthly space crystals. Superman descends the roof silently, majestically behind Lois. She senses his presence and slips the pendant beneath her jacket.
Hi.
Hi.
He kisses her, but not passionately. Superman has learned over the years to hold back the true depth of his feelings for her. Superman looks up wistfully at the initials on the metallic ocean.
Under the sea.
Wasn't sure if you'd remember.
Superman gently opens her jacket to expose the glowing pendant.
The night I gave you this?
He steps closer, placing his hands on Lois's shoulders. He can feel how tense she is when she pushes him away and steps back.
I didn't ask you here to reminisce.
Down to business already.
This isn't about business. This is about us.
What about us?
Just look at us all these years and nothing's ever changed. We can never make plans because you never know where you'll have to be. The times we're together just last because you're always, or never last because you're always rushing off for another good deed. All these years, and you've never slowed down long enough for us to have any kind of life together, let alone a future.
Superman attempts to say something, but Lois cuts him off.
Would you please let me talk?
He is taken aback. This is a Lois he has never seen before. Cut to exterior tenement building night. Black smoke has begun to waft out of a top floor window. From inside, we can hear the cries of young children. From here, we can see the planet building as part of the skyline 3 miles away. Cut to the Daily Planet roof, night. Superman and Lois still talking under the globe.
I'm willing to admit it. I'm just like everyone else, but not you. And you don't need anyone. It's always the rest of the world that needs you.
Lois, it's my job. You've always known that.
What I know is I can't stand this anymore. Maybe you're not human, but I am. I've got to have a life. Someone who's willing to share his life with me. If that someone is ever going to be you, tell me. Tell me now.
I wish I could make you understand the responsibilities of the people who depend on me to be there for them.
A look of sudden alarm crosses Superman's face as he raises his head and sniffs. He can smell the smoke from the tenement fires.
What is it?
Superman turns to flash his telescopic vision miles to the east.
You're going to say it, aren't you?
I'm sorry.
No.
Superman turns and takes off in a single bound. As Lois watches him soar off into the night, we begin to hear the sirens of fire engines in the distance.
You have a job to do.
Camera moves in on Lois. A tear runs down her cheek. Cut to a television screen, no sound. TV news footage of Superman flying out of the smoking tenement building carrying 3 small children. He lands amid several firemen as the relieved parents catch up to embrace them. Fire trucks, equipment, spraying hoses, etc. in the background. Pull back to reveal Lois's apartment. Cardboard cartons, crates, suitcases everywhere. Serious packing has been going on here. Lois is pacing back and forth in her bathrobe, her hair wet, trying to ignore the TV as she holds a portable phone to her ear. Mr. Thornhill is in San Diego for the day. May I take a message? She takes a last look at the caped figure on the silent TV screen.
You can tell him I've thought the offer over and the answer is yes.
He'll be extremely happy to hear that, Miss Lane. May I be the first to welcome you aboard the... Abruptly, Lois abruptly hangs up, a moment to steel herself, taking a deep breath, and she punches in a local number.
Hello? Harry?
Cut to the planet Saturn. A mounting low rumble. Beyond Saturn's outermost ring, we see the massive space arc streaking past in great velocity. Cut to inside the arc, a new chamber. Kosmo stands before an imposing array of newly constructed hardware, fantastic machines, so advanced that they are beyond his considerable comprehension. He is watching as he effortlessly lifts a large component weighing several tons and fits it into the new berth with cold precision.
Full comprehension of this baffling species will require extraordinary measures. Close observation at the most intimate level. I will have to be one of them.
Yes. A human android is a simple assembly. If we expand the internal drive capacity for your input, we will be able to.
No, I will be one of them. I will be alive.
That's not possible.
A robotic arm removes a metal lid, revealing a 7-foot-long cocoon, a glass sarcophagus. Brainiac opens the lid.
I am 12th level, Kosmo.
A hollow mold inside has chillingly familiar shape, the contour of a man.
Everything is possible.
Cut to interior Daily Planet, Perry White's office day. Lois gives Jimmy a big hug as Perry and Clark look on.
The planet just won't be the same without you, Miss Lane. You need anything at all. Who are you gonna call?
Jimmy, don't ever change.
Lois turns to hug Perry, trying his best to keep his composure.
Remember everything I taught you? Not that you're likely to need much of that at the Bush League rag like the Times.
Good reporters don't get great stories. Good
Reporters make them great.
She turns to Clark. Awkward silence. Neither knows how to begin.
Walk me to the bank.
Perry and Jimmy stand at the door to Perry's office, watching Lois say her last goodbyes on her way out of the city room.
She hates smog. She hates carpools. She even hates palm trees. She hates LA. What's wrong with this picture?
You're still in it.
Jimmy wisely leaves. Perry begins to realize how much he's going to miss Lois as he watches her leave the city room with Clark. Cut to the elevator lobby. Clark and Lois wait. Clark nervous, awkward, frustrated. Not the cool, collected Superman from the night before.
Last night it finally sank in. Nothing's ever going to change. He is never going to change. For years, I put my life on hold for a dream. Deep down, I think I always knew dreams only come true in fairy tales, not Metropolis.
The elevator arrives, almost full. Lois and Clark step aboard.
Why do I dump all this on you?
What are friends for?
The Brainiac space arc, passing the planet Mars on its earthward trek. Metropolis now a mere 35 million miles away. Cut to interior Metropolis Federal Bank Day. 2:59 p.m. An elderly guard is about to lock the doors when a Franciscan monk appears at the entrance holding up a note. As the guard reads the note, the monk opens his robe to reveal a .357 Magnum aimed at the guard's stomach. Lois and Clark stand in line waiting for a teller.
Friends, who knows? Maybe I'll meet someone with both feet on the ground for a change. And you know what? After a while, I might even learn what a normal life is again.
Lois begins to remove the pendant. Clark is torn up inside.
Ugh. Okay, one last favor. Will you give this back to Superman for me and tell him?
Blam, blam! The gunshots rip it to the bank ceiling. All eyes look to see the monk as he butts the guard's head with his gun. The guard is sent sprawling to the floor.
I don't know where my gun is. This is a .357 Magnum, people.
Bank employees and customers react.
And this is a robbery. Oh, please.
A bank officer hunches forward with his arm under his desk, about to press the alarm button, but the robber sees and fires. An explosion of green plastic erupts where the desk lamp was.
I don't think so. Over there, all of you.
The officers scramble to join the customers. The robber pulls a gunny sack from the robe and throws it at the nearest teller.
Fill this up. Move it.
The tellers hastily begin emptying their cash drawers. Clark and Lois watch along with the other customers.
The brothers must have a ballroom payment due on the monastery.
The robber turns and sees the beautiful crystal pendant in Lois's hand. He singles her out with his gun.
You! Are you addressing me? The necklace, throw it over here. It clashes with the robe. Trust me.
Lois.
Give it to me anyway.
Clark notices the bank guard recovering off to the side, using the distraction to return to his feet.
I would, but the thing is, it doesn't belong to me anymore. These bullets don't belong to me either, lady, but I'll be happy to give them to you.
Suddenly, Clark takes the necklace and steps in front of her.
Clark, what are you?
Why would you want to shoot her, brother?
I hate a bitch with an attitude.
Let's watch our language. She's a wonderful girl who just doesn't have the good sense to be afraid.
Lois blinks, meets meek Clark Kent defending her honor at gunpoint. The robber levels his gun at Clark right between the eyes.
How about you, dipstick? You afraid?
Clark's trembling hand holds up the necklace while the pupils of his eyes glow red. He's zapping the pendant with heat vision.
Almost always. Ask anybody.
Cut the crap, throw it to me.
Here it comes.
With a gentle underhand toss, Clark tosses the red-hot pendant. The robber reaches out to catch it with his free hand, his fingers squeezed tight around the pendant. He cries out in severe pain. The necklace drops. The guard seizes the moment and jumps the robber. They fight for the gun. During the struggle, the barrel waves erratically at the customers. Clark sees the robber's fingers start to squeeze the trigger, and Lois is directly in line of fire. Clark lunges, holding Lois close as he shields her with his back. He turns to look over his shoulder just as the gun goes off. Blam! In slow motion, Clark darts his head several inches to the right, just in time to catch the .357 slug between his teeth. The guard finally manages to wrest the gun away. He presses the .357 barrel against the back of the robber's head.
On the floor! Hands behind your head!
Hands behind his head, the robber drops to his knees. The bank guard kicks him forward onto his stomach.
I said on the floor! Brother?
Clark lets go of Lois, self-conscious now. Lois, speechless. As the guard bends down to pick up the pendant, Clark exhales a silent stream of super breath to cool down, back to normal. For a beat, the guard examines it, failing to figure out why the pendant made the robber freak. Then he returns it to Clark.
Okay, pal? For a minute, I thought he was going to make you eat a bullet.
Clark swallows the .357 slug with a large gulp. Cut to exterior bank day. Clark and Lois watch two uniformed officers load the handcuffed monk into a squad car.
And if you'd been hit, could you just see me trying to explain that to Perry on my way to the airport? Oh gosh. I've got no business chewing you out. It was my fault.
Clark's posture becomes more erect. Unwittingly, he slips into his man of steel tone and demeanor.
Looking after you is going to be a tough habit to break. I never would have forgiven myself if you'd been hurt.
Intrigued, she stares at him for a long beat.
You really mean that, don't you? Clark Kent, you would start to get interesting my last day here.
Clark debates a moment. Should he finally drop the pretense and reveal the truth once and for all? The moment passes. The truth loses. As Lois gives him a hug, he smiles sheepishly. He hugs back, but represses his true emotion, as usual.
I think I may miss you most.
Lois steps back, tears in her eyes. She turns and loses herself in the afternoon flow of pedestrians. Push in on Clark, watching the woman he loves walk out of his life. Cut to exterior Earth ionosphere. Brainiac's space arc enters the Earth's atmosphere over North America. The darkness of night has spread across the side of the globe. Minute twinkling lights dot the eastern seaboard below. Cut to interior Daily Planet office's night. Perry sits with a bottle of scotch on his desk, poring over the scrapbook of Daily Planet clippings, all scoops by Lois Lane. In the city room, a melancholy Clark is at his desk, his thoughts a galaxy away. He toys with the pendant Lois returned to him. Cut to exterior Lois Lane's apartment building night. The doorman helps Lois into a cab while the driver puts her suitcases into the trunk. Cut to exterior eastern seaboard sky, night. The massive space ark glides swiftly and silently over the Atlantic toward the eastern seaboard. Cut to exterior metropolis outskirts, night. A deserted industrial area on near the city limits. Lois's cab is pulling over to the curb. Behind it is a patrol car. A uniformed cop of average height and build gets out of the car. A confident, cat-like walk, mirrored sunglasses. The cab driver shakes his head and curses under his breath. Lois makes a face and checks her watch. Cut to interior space ark main bridge. Brainiac at his command station, Kosmo at another console. Both of them monitor complex arrays of screens and digital readouts. On a viewer screen, a 3D computer image of Metropolis rotates 360 degrees, revealing the foundations, subways, etc. below. From the vast underside of the colossal ship, a hatch opens. A strange apparatus slides out to point down at the city below like a robotic stinger. It glows and hums. Cut to exterior Metropolis outskirts, night. The cop writes a ticket. Lois holds her press card out the window, but she never sees the cop's face.
Look, I'm Lois Lane, the Daily Planet. I don't mean to be rude, but I'm trying to make a flight. What do I need to do to speed this up?
Lose the attitude.
Cut to exterior Midtown Metropolis, night. A rumbling sound has begun to reverberate throughout the city. Pedestrians look up and point. Tenants peer out of their windows, their point of view. The stars to the west have blacked out. An immense, indefinable black shape moves eastward over the city. Cut to interior Daily Planet, night. From his window, Perry sees a bizarre rain of thin blue beams connect with many confused, unsuspecting male pedestrians below. He goes to the door and sticks his head out into the city room.
Kent, come take a look.
Clark is gone from his desk. Cut to interior darkened storeroom, night. Close on Clark's hand, opening his shirt to reveal the S emblem. Superman in the sky. Leaves the planet building below as he zooms up and away toward the awesome ship, a craft so huge it almost equals the width of the Metropolis skyline. Like a human-guided missile, the tiny man of steel ascends toward the underside of the ark, but then a thin glowing aura instantly envelops the hull of the ship, an impenetrable force field. It stops Superman cold. He ricochets down toward the Metropolis skyline below, ending up embedded in the side of a skyscraper 80 floors up. Dazed, the robotic stinger apparatus now emits a spiral cone of light down towards Metropolis. The descending cosmic spiral widens. Cut to exterior outskirts of Metropolis, night. The cab driver starts to pull away from the patrol car. Lois greatly annoyed in the back seat as she looks at her watch. But one split second before she is about to clear the city limits and pull Metropolis behind her forever, a spiral wall of cosmic energy suddenly descends the block to block the cab's path. The driver hits the brakes. Lois is thrown forward. She ventures out of the cab for a better look. Behind her, a blue beam shoots down through the cab to connect with the unwary driver. Lois looks up to see every block in sight completely enclosed by the curved energy wall that spirals high into the sky. It seems to encompass the entire city in a cone of eerie light.
Dear God.
Cut to exterior Midtown Metropolis, night. Gridlocks, horns blare. Drivers have abandoned their cars to join the throngs gawking at the spiral of energy around the city. Pedestrians are starting to panic, too busy running around to notice the blue beams shooting down from above to connect the various male adults in the crowd. Cut to Superman. Revived with a second wind, he takes off from the skyscraper. He zooms up and hovers about 50 feet beneath a giant spacecraft. His eyes beam up a wide swath of heat vision. A large section of his force field starts to change color and fade. Cut to the cop, driving along the path of the spiral wall, comes upon a 30-foot tall transformer tower, uprooted by the energy wall alongside it. The tower now leans precariously, dangling a live, high-voltage line that lays across the unlucky car. A sobbing teenage girl is trapped inside, both doors wedged shut by the leaning transformer.
Help. Somebody please help me.
The cop gets out of his car to help. Cut to the massive underside of the space ark. Superman pelts the section of the aura already weakened by the heat vision with a merciless barrage of super speed blows. They cause the aura to change color even more. Inside the space ark, the bridge, Brainiac at his command station, facing several consoles as he monitors Metropolis. Superman's glows echo across the bridge.
Our prized specimen has decided to greet us. The humans. What do they call him?
A row of gauges in front of Kosmo are redlined to indicate the tremendous strain Superman's attack is putting on the force field.
Superman.
Cut to exterior Metropolis outskirts night. The cop is about to use the butt of his police rifle to knock out the trapped car's rear window.
Duck.
The girl ducks as the cop bashes the window. Glass flies, then a wrenching creak of metal. The cop looks up to see the crippled transformer ominously lurch off balance another foot to the right.
Climb over here, hurry.
The frightened girl scrambles up into the back seat.
Watch the glass, give me your hands.
The cop reaches in the rear window to help. Just as the damaged support beams buckle, the entire structure begins to collapse. The cop pulls the girl out and manages to push her to safety just before the transformer tower comes crashing down the car. He doesn't get out in time. The cop has been mortally injured, his legs and lower torso crushed beneath the transformer. The girl screams. She runs. Ruptured lungs gasp for the last gulp of air, just as a blue beam passes through the wreckage and connects with the mortally injured hero, just seconds before the cop dies. Cut to the massive underside of the space ark. Spider-Man maintains his barrage of heat vision and super punches, the same section of the aura now more weakened than ever before. Inside the ship, from his command post, Brainiac begins pushing new buttons.
Our prize is becoming tiresome.
Continued, close on Brainiac's robotic fingers pushing more buttons. Suddenly, the force field flashes a vertical shaft of energy that strikes Superman head-on. Down, down, down pushes the energy shaft, forcing Superman toward a Metropolis street, down through the pavement with a pulverizing force. Chunks of asphalt and concrete scatter in all directions. In the bottom of the hole, beneath the street, is a fresh pile of smashed concrete, stones, and asphalt. No trace of Superman, save for a protruding corner of a red cape and a hand, an unmoving, blue-sleeved hand. Cut to interior Brainiac Space Ark Bridge. On a viewer screen, a rotating computer model of Metropolis is now completely encapsulated inside the spiral cone.
The city is mine.
Kosmo stays at his console, visibly shaken by Superman's defeat. The Stinger apparatus beneath the ark emits a jet of purple energy that shoots down to the breadth of the spiral energy cone. Then the colossal vessel suddenly slingshots up and away, vanishing into the starry night sky. Where Metropolis was, there is now only an empty crater, deep 10 miles across, illuminating the night with a raw crimson glow. Cut to interior space ark, the new chamber. Kosmo stands at a console before a floating glass cocoon containing a naked man. As the silhouetted body slowly rotates, nozzles spray strange liquids that instantly solidify to become clothes. Within seconds, a futuristic outfit has been completed.
I knew I was a gay man from the minute I read this beginning of the script. This morning, that was just a cell. Oh, a cell sampled from Metropolis. He cloned a human adult in 9 hours, Krina. Did you hear that? 9 hours.
Control yourself.
Sorry,
Kosmo presses a switch and a 3D hologram of the clone's brain appears before them. Interspersed with the usual folds of gray matter is an intricate network of computerized microcircuitry.
Look at this. Only Brainiac could have expanded the capacity of a human brain to accommodate 12th level intelligence.
Krina continues looking on grimly from inside the epaulet.
We are the ones who should have our heads examined. Hasn't the past taught us anything? We can't do this, Kosmo. We can't unleash it onto the universe all over again.
We can do nothing else.
Abort it. Abort the transference.
Oh, another mansplaining about abortion. Great, let's go.
This may be our last chance. Our last chance anyone ever has to stop.
Push in on Kosmo, the look of indecision on his face. Cut to exterior Midtown Metropolis night. Chaos and confusion that comes with the blackout. Buildings and windows dark. Cars gridlocked. People roaming on sidewalks and streets. Mounted police trying to maintain order on horseback. Cut to interior Daily Planet city room night. Perry White paces back and forth at the front of the room, sleeves rolled up, puffing away on his cigar.
Terminals are up and emergency generator is good for 12 hours. If we pull together, we can. Not you two.
Pull back to reveal the city room is nearly deserted. The two reporters remaining are putting on their coats and walking out.
Go. Why the hell not? Everyone else has.
Only Jimmy Olsen is left, sitting at his desk, feet up, loudly munching on potato chips.
Lois would have stayed. Lois I could count on. Her and Kent.
Harry walks over to the window, gazing out at the darkened city.
No one could smell a story like Clark Kent. He was the first one out of here, and he'll be the one that comes back with an exclusive.
Jimmy has walked over to join Perry, puts a hand on his shoulder.
Just you and me now, Chief. We have to hold down the fort. Is this the beginning of a beautiful friendship or what?
Perry scowls and begins walking out of the city room.
I'm going to the can.
Cut to inside the space ark, the new chamber. A pair of parallel anti-grav racks float in the center of the lab. A large apparatus with twin snouts positioned between them. A glass cocoon filled with swirling mist slides on one rack. Brainiac lies on his back on the other rack. The terminals inside his transparent skull glow red. Kosmo stands at a central console looking unusually stressed, perspiring as he makes the final adjustments. The precious epaulette is missing from his shoulder. Close on Brainiac's robotic right hand, and we see Kosmo's glass epaulette clutched between the powerful metal fingers. We glimpse the tiny Krina in her glass cubicle. The metal fingers flex around the epaulette with implicit deadly force. So much for Krina's pleas to abort. The robot turns his massive head toward Kosmo and slowly nods. Kosmo takes a deep breath and initiates an elaborate series of switches which activate the awesome technology. The surreal futuristic laboratory glows and hums to life. The twin snouts of the apparatus emit matching surges of sparks. Violent bursts of electricity erupt around both Brainiac and the glass cocoon. A cosmic frenzy that builds into a swift crescendo. Then, all is calm. The machine is dead. The terminals in the robot's skull are dark. They no longer glow. Inside the glass cocoon's swirling mists, the silhouette stirs. It has come alive. The glass cocoon begins to split down the middle and opens. Mists swirl away to reveal an adult male slowly sitting up. We now recognize which of these specimens Kosmo cloned. The cop who sacrificed himself in Metropolis to save the teenage girl. But the clone's face and hands have an odd pallor, and its outfit now features a most unusual-looking futuristic belt. Kosmo, meanwhile, has rushed over to extract the epaulette from the dormant robot's massive fingers. He breathes a sigh of relief.
You were supposed to abort. That's what we decided.
With loving care, he reattaches Krina's quarters to his shoulder.
I couldn't. Not if he was going to make me choose.
Cautiously, Kosmo begins to approach his master's new form.
Brainiac.
The new Brainiac doesn't answer, still reacting with childlike wonderment to his new human senses and perceptions.
That is you, isn't it?
Brainiac continues to ignore him, still looking around.
Talk to me. Tell me your name. I'm sorry, how do you feel?
Brainiac inhales slowly, savoring the sensation of air going into his lungs. Suddenly, a halo of spinning electric sparks appears over his head. The halo vanishes as quickly as it appeared.
Like a new man.
Cut to exterior Metropolis day, the skyline obscured by a foggy haze that sits low over the city. What seems like unusually bright sunlight streams down from above. Cars left abandoned, traffic lights dead, men, women, and children wander aimlessly. Litter, debris strewn everywhere. National Guard soldiers protecting stores from looters. Makeshift relief stations. Volunteers handing out clothes, food, and water. Some lost souls gather around a religious fanatic, clutching a Bible and ranting at the fog-enshrouded sky. Cut to beneath the street day. The blue-sleeved hand still protrudes from the pile of rubble. But after so many hours without movement, a finger twitches. Cut to inside the space ark, a new chamber. Brainiac lays on his back on a rack that CAT scans his entire body. He sees his internal anatomy displayed on the screen. Everything seems to be textbook except the digitized 12th level brain. 2 drones on hand to help Kosmo monitor the equipment.
So you call this living?
For a man of Earth origin, you are indeed in excellent health.
The Superman who assaulted our force field. His powers would seem to suggest an origin that lies elsewhere.
I hadn't given it much thought.
A drone approaches and offers a pincer to help Brainiac climb off the rack. He reaches out to take it.
No, that doesn't sound like you, Kosmo.
The metal pincer proves too slippery. Brainiac loses his grip and his balance. He falls backward ungraciously. Suddenly, Lyla violently kicks the little robot. It bounces across the chamber. Kosmo rushes over to its side.
That was just an accident.
To vaporize the little maggot.
Ah! You lost your temper. That was a display of anger.
Taken aback by his own outburst, Brainiac begins to calm down.
Oh, I'm so sorry, my dear. You have full range of emotions to cope with now. You must learn how to control them.
Brainiac joins Kosmo and crouches down to observe him trying to repair a broken leg pod. The drone whimpers and soft beeps.
What is this feeling?
Probably remorse. The response is quite normal.
With a look of distaste, Brainiac stands up and closes his eyes as the electric halo flashes fleetingly.
I have no use for remorse. It has been deleted.
If this were in the now time where there is Netflix, you would watch Criminal Minds and know that that is not to be true. But anger as well?
No. I like anger.
Kosmo looks up at his master with a new kind of fear. Exterior outer space. The Brainiac arc continues speeding across the cosmos. Interior Brainiac space arc command bridge. Brainiac now stands before a triple image holographic mirror, admiring himself from different angles. He takes a bite from an exotic fruit, chewing for the first time. Kosmo stands by.
I don't think he's actually chewing about the exotic fruit. I think he's shaking the exotic fruit in the mirror. Anyway, chew the food until it becomes soft and pulpy and then swallow. Jesus, how did this turn into a softcore porn? Then empty, that empty feeling will then soon go away.
Taste and hunger. Interesting how sensation and function perform in perfect harmony.
Even by our standards, the human body is a well-designed machine.
Flesh and bone is so fragile. And these muscles are feeble. I didn't realize how vulnerable they were, so susceptible to injury, disease.
Brainiac appears to be feeling the first pangs of human anxiety. Kosmo responds by turning his back to open a drawer.
I have anticipated this. I have anticipated this, and not all of your memory levels are back online yet.
Kosmo suddenly whirls around and fires a ray gun point blank. The beam is repelled by as Brainiac remains unharmed, surprised by the glowing aura that has instantly enveloped his body.
The belt is armed. You designed it yourself. This force field prevents any harm from ever coming to you while you're
Learning. My function is to learn.
Yes.
Kosmo frowns as Brainiac gently takes the weapon and examines it.
What would I do without me?
Placated, he turns to the nearby multi-screens. On one screen is a soap opera, a pair of young lovers having a passionate argument.
Tell me, Kosmo, why is their emotions seldom perform in perfect harmony?
On screen, the woman now slaps the man.
Human nature. Study their mating rituals, except not the Kardashians, and then you will see that they seem to spend most of their time battling with each other and their emotions. Oh shit. Oh wait, it is the Kardashians or each other.
On screen, the lovers have made up and now passionately kiss.
Battles like that give new meaning to the act of surrender.
The small drone that was battered and abused earlier enters the bridge. Brainiac smiles as he watches the little robot slowly amble over to its station with the marked limp.
I assume this brain is capable of interfacing with every shipboard function. Does that include the belt?
Reluctantly, Kosmo nods again. Brainiac turns back to the drone, and to Kosmo's horror, the belt shoots a beam across the bridge that vaporizes the unfortunate robot on the spot.
So it does.
Cut to exterior Metropolis Street, day. We hear a rumbling deep below the gaping hole in the pavement. Suddenly, rocks and concrete explode from the hole, propelled by the buried red and blue figure that zooms up out of the ground. The fog mists high above Metropolis begin to scatter with a whoosh of super breath, while Superman's flying point of view zooms forward. The mists continue to part to the left and the right until he sees a crystalline wall, translucent with an eerie frosted glow. Superman speeds ahead, intending to crash through, but the awesome impact leaves only a slight dent. He hovers back to see the wall rise into the air and curve over the city like a canopy. Superman's X-ray vision point of view through the wall reveals a giant robot drone, too mammoth to imagine. With dimensions so colossal, the robot would tower well over a mile into the air. Interior Space Ark, the transport tube dock. Brainiac is climbing into a jet tram, where a drone sits at the helm. With a sudden kick, he sends the drone hurtling out.
I want to drive.
The little robot falls to the floor, bouncing in front of Kosmo's feet. Slightly warily, Kosmo helps the drone back up.
My mistake.
You've been up for 3 days, Kosmo. Get some sleep. And rest assured.
Now seated at the helm, Brainiac gives Kosmo a final sharp look.
Our prize will have my undivided attention.
The tram whooshes Brainiac away in the transport tube.
He suspects.
Every human instinct here have a Ricola. He cultivates is expanded to the 12th level. Doubt and suspicion were inevitable.
I have to say, I'm not optimistic.
Kosmo turns and starts walking away. The drone hobbles after him.
I have to believe in Superman.
Exterior Metropolis City Park, day. A white energy sphere materializes and deposits Brainiac. He calmly takes his bearings and sets out on a leisurely walk. A mother sits on a park bench rocking a carriage, her infant sleeping as she reads the morning paper. She looks up to see Brainiac peering in at the baby. But there's no warmth in his eyes, just cold fascination while observing a new specimen. The mother is instinctually afraid. She drops the paper and we hear,
The sky! Look at the sky! The day of reckoning is at hand.
The grungy religious fanatic accosts them, ranting, Bible in hand. The infant starts to stir from a peaceful sleep.
Shh, please, my baby, go away.
I
I thought that was me. I'm so sorry. Oh, I tell you, Armageddon is upon us. Serpent, repent, woman. Repent the serpent, woman. I ask for salvation for you, and you should ask for salvation too.
The baby begins to cry. Brainiac is annoyed on their behalf.
Go away, or I'll be angry.
The Fanatic ignores the warning and continues ranting in Brainiac's face.
Damn it. Why did you mute me, brother? Repent, brother. Repent or burn in hell.
Suddenly, the belt emits a beam. It ignites the Fanatic into an instant fireball that shoots up into the air and explodes in black smoke. Only the Bible and a charged shoe fall to the grass. The mother throws herself across the crying infant, looking up at Brainiac with wide-eyed terror.
Must do something about this temper.
Calm once again, he spies the discarded Daily Planet on the grass. The headline reads, Man of Steel saves skyscraper. Brainiac walks on. Cut to exterior Metropolis City Hall day. The mayor, flanked by 2 aides, stands outside his limousine facing a small group of worried and concerned citizens.
People, please, with all of this wild speculation, it serves no purpose. When we have all the facts, you'll have all the facts. And until then,
Mr. Mayor, given the severity of the situation, don't you think that the public's entitled to know everything you know?
The mayor frowns to see Lois emerge from the front of the crowd.
This is not a press conference, Miss Lane.
There's a God in heaven after all.
Before anyone can say another word, all eyes look up to see Superman land majestically in their midst.
Glad to see you back on the streets, man.
Superman will put everything right again. He always does. Superman distracted as he spots Lois in the crowd. Their eyes lock for a meaningful beat. And then Superman turns to his honor. The distraught mayor leads Superman away for a moment of privacy.
What is this, Superman? You've got to tell me what on earth has happened to my city.
Exterior Metropolis Street day. Brainiac strolls along a wide street. No moving traffic. Cars left abandoned left and right. People wandering about aimlessly. He pauses. Nonchalantly, he looks up at the billows of foggy mists that still hang low over the city. Cut to Superman and the mayor. His honor now sits on the steps, his eyes wide with disbelief.
You can't be serious. Tell them Metropolis has been taken hostage aboard a giant flying saucer. You have any idea what kind of damage that would do to my re-election campaign?
Something above has caught Superman's attention. The mayor also looks up, as do Lois and the other reporters, their point of view toward the sky. The fog mists have begun to drift, revealing the immense crystalline canopy that now encapsulates Metropolis on all sides. A city captured under glass. Superman takes off and follows the now streaming mists. Lois and the other reporters follow. Cut to Brainiac. He stands planted in the middle of the street like some malevolent god, both arms outstretched toward the sky. From all directions, the fog mists in the sky are now funneling down toward Brainiac in multiple streams. All of them combine into one thick stream that pours down into an open manhole in front of Brainiac. And just as the last of the mists disappear, his boot pushes the cover back in place. Superman lands in the middle of the street to face his foe.
I am Brainiac.
Brainiac steps forward to scrutinize Superman.
Come a long way to meet you, Superman. No negative effects from last night. Amazing. Truly amazing.
I could say the same for your ship.
Brainiac smiles with satisfaction.
All this is your doing?
Complex molecular matrix of my own design. I doubt if even you could break through.
Brainiac continues to study his caped specimen with fascination.
We soon find out. I know what you've done to Metropolis.
Superman's tone indicates that he knows the big picture.
You continue to astound me. You can't be one of them.
Suddenly, Brainiac's belt emits a white beam that engulfs Superman in an instantaneous fireball. But then, just as quickly, the fireball vanishes. Superman stands unscathed, unfazed.
As I thought. Another species alien to Earth. Far superior.
Superman opens his mouth and exhales all the fire he swallowed in a 10-foot stream of flame that creates a bizarre ring of fire around Brainiac. The belt responds, emitting the force field that instantly envelops Brainiac. He steps through the flames without harm. He shrugs apologetically. The car flips over in spectacular fashion to shear off a fire hydrant. Water gushes up in a 20-foot geyser. People run. Superman blows super breath at the gushing water, blowing the geyser toward Brainiac to douse him with a powerful stream. He then uses a blast of super cold breath to instantly freeze the water and encase Brainiac in a 6-foot-tall block of ice. But through the ice, the telltale aura starts to glow red. A beat, and then the ice explodes. Brainiac emerges, steam billowing.
I'll say that was refreshing.
A police SWAT team arrives and takes up battle positions.
Everyone stay back. Keep clear, people. Stay behind the lines.
Prominent among the onlookers is Perry White and Jimmy Olsen.
Pulverize him, Superman. Pound this guy into a hamburger. Show him what the home team can do.
Brainiac glances with curiosity at the crowd, cheering for Superman.
How they worship you. What did you do to win their loyalty?
Superman starts to advance, his anger mounting.
Don't tell me. You earned it.
Brainiac scans around, his gaze finally settling on a giant globe mounted on the roof of the Daily Planet building.
There are easier ways to command devotion.
Suddenly, his belt fires a beam up to the Daily Planet roof that disintegrates the metal base that holds the globe in place. The globe teeters, wrenches, then the base collapses. The globe rolls off the edge of the roof toward the street below. Superman shoots Brainiac a look.
What can I say? I'm only human.
Superman takes off into the air to catch the 10-ton steel globe, like Atlas hovering in midair, the world on his shoulders.
A toy planet you can save, but not your city.
Brainiac looks up. His belt fires a beam at the roof of the Daily Planet building that materializes into an ominous symbol we recognize. The Brainiac symbol now crowns the roof of the planet.
Metropolis belongs to me now.
This only makes Superman more determined. Angrily, he thrusts one arm into the globe to the elbow. Then he swoops down and pitches it like a giant bowling ball to send the steel globe rolling up the center of the street.
I can sense you're not taking this well.
The mammoth planet globe rolls, bounces, crushing cars, knocking over street lamps, gaining speed as it barrels up the street. But Brainiac calmly stands his ground as the rolling planet globe strikes him dead on. It explodes and shatters, filling the air with metal shards that rain down over the area. Superman is visibly frustrated to see Brainiac still standing, unharmed, the street littered with the wreckage of the globe.
Must be difficult for them to see their valiant hero fail. But trust me, Superman. They'll get over it.
Brainiac looks around to see expressions of shock, anger, and disbelief on the faces of speechless Metropolis citizens.
Eventually.
Close on 2 metal fragments, each one half of the LL plus Superman Valentine, broken now, like the romance it once symbolized.
After the initial shock, you'd be surprised how eagerly most species learn how to thrive in captivity.
Brainiac's belt suddenly emits a powerful yellow beam that bombards Superman's chest, but his beam has no effect.
You insist on making this difficult.
What can I say? I'm super.
The crowd cheers and applauds, Perry and Jimmy prominent.
I'm back. That's telling him, Superman. Make him kiss your ass.
You won't be sensible about this?
I never give up, Brainiac.
Brainiac concentrates and his belt fires a more powerful orange beam. It knocks Superman back a step, but he stands his ground.
And I never learned how to lose.
Undaunted, Superman charges forward into the orange beam.
Then I shall enlighten you.
Brainiac's aura suddenly becomes brighter as he draws more power. Superman is stopped short. He grabs his chest and drops to one knee in agonizing pain. Jimmy and Perry watch, crestfallen.
Come on, pal. Come on.
Superman reaches out with one hand in a vain attempt to deflect the relentless oncoming beam with his palm. Brainiac slowly advances up the street, the double orange beam continuing to mercilessly bombard Superman.
Unpleasant as it is to watch, I'm sure the people of Metropolis appreciate your efforts.
Lois Lane has just arrived on the scene, out of breath, fighting her way to the front of the crowd to see Brainiac still pelting the downed Superman with the orange beam.
Let's not draw this out much longer. For their sake.
The beam turns purple and becomes even more potent than before. The new barrage causes Superman to buckle over.
Man of Steel. Isn't that what they used to call you?
Superman lays on his side now, curled up in a fetal position.
You meant something to them. You deserve to be remembered.
Brainiac breathing heavily now, face flushed, concentrating, pushing himself to the limit, but clearly enjoying the rush.
A monument. Or a statue. That's it. A statue. A statue made of steel.
Brainiac concentrates even harder. He's worked up a sweat by now and almost seems to be in a state of joyous rapture.
Die, Superman. You must know how to die.
Suddenly, the purple beam erupts into a brilliant, breathtaking burst of multicolored light. A final surge thunders into Superman, and resulting in a violent explosion that rains dirt and rocks over the street. When the smoke settles, we see a charred, smoking crater. No trace of Superman left.
What did I tell you?
Brainiac still flushed, spent, surprised by his own might. The crowd is dumbstruck, in shock, unable to speak. Lois can't help herself. Screaming, she runs out into the street. Lois is very sad.
No!
Perry has to hold Jimmy back to keep him from going after her. Lois drops to her knees before the crater, unmindful of Brainiac. With the fascination of a scientist observing a new specimen, he watches Lois weep. He's taken a definite interest in her. Brainiac moves next to the kneeling Lois and looks up, closing his eyes. A white sphere materializes to envelop them both. When it disappears a beat later, Brainiac and Lois are gone. Shocked silence for several beats. Nobody moves. And then a statue of steel materializes over the crater via a beam shooting down from above, a stainless steel Superman statue. Brainiac kept his word, but the statue was forged in the same humiliating pose of defeat that befell Superman, cowering on one knee, head down, arm held out. Jimmy, Perry, and other onlookers venture forth, speechless, to read the inscription in the base of the statue. In memory of the specimen Superman, origin unknown. Cut to interior Brainiac Arc, Kosmo's workshop. The exhausted Kosmo has dozed off in his chair. He doesn't yet know his precious epaulet is missing again.
Kosmo. Wake up, Kosmo.
Kosmo wakes up with a start to see Brainiac standing in the doorway.
I have a surprise for you.
Brainiac steps aside and ushers in Krina, now full size. Kosmo is speechless.
What happened to my stash? Oh, it's back. Okay.
Yes, Cosmo, it's true.
Brina,
Yes,
can't I see
Cosmo,
your
it's
damn
true.
face? Can't I see your damn face? Come on.
Overcome with joy, Cosmo and Corinna rush into each other's arms.
We put her under the ray so often, by the time we finally perfected the process, the damage was done, you said. Our molecules would never survive one more enlargement.
While Cosmo and Corinna embrace, Brainiac paces around the room.
What did I tell you? Everything is possible.
Overwhelmed, Cosmo looks up from his joyous embrace with Corinna.
How do we ever thank you?
The least I could do. The torture you two went through, not being able to kiss, embrace, touch the face of the one you love.
Brainiac takes out a small timer device and consults it.
It's a shame I didn't neutralize the molecular breakdown.
Cosmo and Corinna interrupt their embrace and turn to Brainiac.
You didn't neutralize the breakdown?
I delayed it by 14 minutes.
Cosmo, hold me. Hold me.
Corinna's eyes widen as she starts to convulse. She looks down to see her skin and clothing begin to shimmer with strange effect.
Make that 13 minutes.
Corinna's legs start to seep onto the floor in a quivering mound.
It's clear now. You concealed the full range of Superman's powers from me, in the hope that I'd be the one who didn't survive our encounter.
Cosmo clings to Corinna, hopelessly trying to stave off her horrific molecular meltdown.
Your champion fought well. He didn't hesitate to sacrifice his life for his city. For a moment there, I felt admiration for him, even respect. Useless feelings. They were deleted.
Cosmo has dropped to his knees, mortified, helpless to stop the final remains of Corinna from seeping through his grasping fingers.
These humans have a saying, Kosmo. You always hurt the ones you love.
As Brainiac walks out, a weeping Cosmo is left huddling over the protoplasmic puddle that was once his wife. Cut to Interior Space Arc guest quarters, where Lois Lane lies prone in deep sleep, the light dim, an outer space vista visible through a large portal in the far wall. Brainiac stands over Lois, holding her silk scarf to his nose to savor the scent of her perfume. Admiring her, he reaches down to brush his fingers against her soft white cheek. Cut to a black screen, silent for several beats. Then we hear a familiar voice, amplified by a chilling echo effect.
Die, Superman. You must know how to die.
A burst of white light fills the screen, and a cloud of red and blue vapor zooms forward at great speed through a cosmic tunnel of spectral white light.
Interception achieved.
The cloud races through the winding tunnel of white light until it approaches the dead end ahead, a crystalline wall.
Initiating entry into Kandor now.
The vapor cloud continues to zoom forward. As it passes through the crystalline wall, there is another explosion of white light. Dissolved to a spherical chamber where the vapor has just solidified into Superman, he lays in a fetal position, his smoking body covered in burns, soot, and ash.
We have him.
There's more damage than we anticipated.
We may be too late.
Exterior Brainiac space arc, slingshotting across the cosmic panorama of outer space. Inside the space arc, the observation deck, Lois and Brainiac sit at a small dinner table, both dressed in formal dress space garb. Through the viewing portal behind them, a spectacular outer space vista beckons. Little Vincent is nearby, wearing an apron and a chef's hat.
You've outdone yourself, Vincent. You must tell me how you synthesized this marvelous sauce. I love to learn. You might say it's my
reason for living.
Brainiac notices Lois push away her plate. On it is a blue steak.
Too rare for you?
My doctor told me to avoid blue meats.
Vincent! Obviously, somebody didn't spend enough time in the kitchen studying his Earth cuisines. My humble apologies.
It's all right, really.
Hesitantly, the little robot ambles up to the table.
On Earth, Vincent, you'll find blue sky, blue oceans, even blue hair. But what you'll never find is a blue filet mignon.
Brainiac grabs his water glass. He rips off Vincent's chef's hat.
Open your portal. I said open your portal. Spare the rod, spoil the drone.
A small hatch opens in the drone's head. Brainiac pours the glass of water down the hatch. Vincent begins to short circuit, bouncing off the floor and the walls in a spastic frenzy until he finally comes to a rest upside down against the far wall. An awkward silence for several beats as poor Vincent fizzles and smokes in the corner.
I think I'll just pass on desserts.
You have to start eating more. You're 8 pounds under your ideal Earth weight.
8 pounds. You know a woman's figure about as well as Vincent knows how to cook. All the females in Metropolis had to pick me
You were Superman's woman.
in my dreams.
3 screens materialize to show a procession of TV news clips of Superman and Lois. Superman saving her from gunfire, a fall, a fire, Lois interviewing Superman, Superman flying with Lois, the two of them holding hands at a public function, etc., etc.
Those are not dreams. You were Superman's woman.
Lois breaks down. Fascinated, Brainiac reaches out to touch one of her tears. He puts his finger to his mouth to taste it. Lois rises and walks over to the viewing portal to gaze into deep space. Brainiac rises to join her.
Simple logic dictates a specimen of his caliber would have chosen a superior female for himself.
Brainiac behind Lois now, putting his hands on her shoulders. As she wipes her eyes, Lois tenses from his touch.
It's time to leave Superman to the past. Look to the future. I've chosen you to be my teacher, Lois. Together, we'll explore romance, seduction, share the depth and power of our emotions.
Lois thinks furiously as Brainiac clumsily nuzzles her neck.
I can see why you love to learn.
I'd hate to resort to force. What will it take to win you? What do I give you?
Lois has an idea at last. She turns around.
3 days.
3 days.
When one of us dies, the mate must go through a period of solitude. It's our way. How we deal with grief.
After this solitude, you will accept me. Be with me.
Lois forces a nod. Brainiac looks to the stars to ponder.
2 days. I will give you 2 days.
Lois breathes a silent sigh of relief. The door hisses open and another drone enters the room. Poor Vincent remains in the corner, still short-circuiting and fizzling.
Thank you. A lot of men might not have understood.
The drone starts to lead Lois out. Brainiac turns his gaze back toward the stars.
You'll be worth the wait.
Interior space arc weight disposal unit. Kosmo clutches a walk-shaped container. Inside it are Krina's liquefied remains. He holds it up, bows his forehead, and closes his eyes. He places the container in a disposal bay. A transparent door slides down, and whoosh, it is ejected out into outer space. Kosmo peers forlornly through the portal, a face of utter despair watching the container disappear into the blackness of space. He presses the tip of his index finger to the glass portal and mouths a soundless farewell. Cut to the S emblem of Superman's uniform. It is hanging on a wall in a futuristic chamber, totally different in design from Brainiac's ship.
Such a strange chest. It belongs to no family in Kandor.
At least he'll live to wear it again.
Camera pulls wide, continued to reveal that we are in an operating room inside the city of Kandor's awesome pyramid of healing, their equivalent of a hospital. 3 surgeons surround Superman on an operating table. They wear visors and germ-proof masks. They are assisted by 2 medical mini-drones that hover low over Superman's body.
Life will be different for him here.
You'll have to learn to adjust.
We discover one of our own on Earth City, and there's no injury? No attempt to learn why he was found with genetically impaired lesser species.
Suddenly, an imperious voice booms through the chamber.
I shall make a point of relaying your concerns to the rest of the council.
All eyes look up to see an imposing figure, gray hair, dressed in the attire of high rank, stand in the observation deck overhead. This is the elder known as Max-Dur.
We didn't see you, Max-Dur, as ever an honor. His name is Kal-El. His father and I were colleagues years before you were born. That will have to appease your curiosity for now. Prognosis?
The tissue regeneration has been successful. We expect full recovery.
This Kal-El will be able to lead a life as a normal man.
Max-Dur stares down at them for a long beat.
You know, you don't know what you're asking of him.
Interior space arc, the guest quarters. Lois sits talking with Vincent as she examined the patches and staples that have been applied to mend the damage Brainiac caused.
There's no excuse for this kind of abuse. I mean, somebody around here must take care of you. Loving care. Is it another machine? No? Okay, what does that leave? Another living being? Is there someone else aboard the ship? Someone alive? Thank God. All right, do you think this person might be, willing to help me?
2 more beeps. Lois sighs with relief.
Okay, listen, Vincent. I'm a desperate woman. In 2 days, Brainiac makes me the love of his life. Please, I need a friend.
A long beat. The drone finally beeps and extends an antenna into the wall panel. The door silently hisses open. Outside, a waiting tram in the transport tube beckons. Cut to Superman reviving to find himself on a floating recliner in a futuristic private room. He was wearing a strange outfit. He doesn't yet realize his face now shows a day's growth of beard. He steps off the recliner, still woozy. He tries to focus his X-ray vision on the door, but he can't see through. He tries to push the door in. It doesn't budge. Baffled as he rams the door with his shoulder, it holds, and his shoulder hurts. Close on a woman's hand, pressing a control panel on the wall. Suddenly, Superman turns around to the far wall in the room. Suddenly, Superman turns around to see the far wall of the room slide away to reveal an outdoor balcony that looks out onto the city of Kandor. Magnificent chiseled crystal towers and multi-level plateaus. Hover cars navigate canyons crisscrossed by elevated sidewalks. Here, too, is a telltale crystalline canopy. But here, an artificial red sun illuminates the city. The air has a distinct crimson hue. Superman grimly reacts when he spots an ominous Brainiac symbol floating above the skyline. He steps closer to the balcony edge.
You may jump. It's flying, which is out of the question.
Superman turns to see Vul-Nu, the female surgeon, facing him.
Welcome to Kandor. I am Vul-Nu.
Brainiac took your city too.
Many years ago. My colleagues and I make a habit of observing every city to join the collection. We found particularly interesting.
You saw the fight.
We had to beam you out. It was the only way to save your life.
Superman flexes an arm and rubs his sore shoulder.
And my powers?
Your survival came with a price.
The stark reality of his predicament is starting to sink in.
Anywhere else in the galaxy and you were Superman. Not here. Under our sun, you're like all of us, mortal for the rest of your natural life.
What are you telling me?
You've come home, Kal-El. This is Krypton.
Superman reacts. He turns, awestruck by the stark magnificence of the city from his lost planet of his birth. Interior space arc, a transport tube. Vincent has driven the jet tram to a stop in front of a massive door. He and Lois step out. The drone inserts a rod into the wall and the door opens. They venture in to see the Chamber of Cities, a cadaverous room filled with rows of floating crystalline city eggs. Each city egg is hooked up to its own cluster of life support tubes. Each city egg crowned by a glowing orb that emits artificial sunlight. Orbs of all different colors to simulate their planet's original suns. Yellow, green, orange, blue. Lois ventures forth, awestruck. She now knows the unspeakable truth. Brainiac not only steals the cities he collects, he shrinks them down and encapsulates them. Each city inside a crystalline egg. Each egg teeming with microscopic millions. Panning with Lois walking along the crystal eggs. A spellbinding cross-section of intergalactic life, no two cities alike, each from a different planet. An underwater city of coral-like spires, a treehouse city nestled in a jungle-infested egg, a silicon city, a geometric oasis of in a desert egg, a rock city chiseled in walls of cliffs. Lois stops, not prepared for the last city in a row. Metropolis. The familiar skyline miniaturized, the entire city contained with a 4-foot-long crystalline egg. Lois advances in shock and fascination. She spots a toy-sized Daily Planet building and the ominous Brainiac symbol.
I'm sorry about your metropolis.
Lois whirls to see Kosmo and another drone facing her.
Oh, my friends.
Intact, I assure you. Probably still unaware of their true size. Brainiac's collection. Hundreds of cities stolen from all ends of the galaxy. Sustained by artificial environments that simulate the conditions on their home planets.
Lois watches Vincent scoot over to join Kosmo and the other drone.
Cosmo at your service, but people used to call me Kosmo.
Their intelligence is amazing. Did you build them?
4th level, most of them. Vincent and Roberto are 6th. These days, most of my time seems devoted to damage control.
And I've seen how he treats them.
He has a sick mind.
In the next row, 2 other drones pass by. They are pulling a city egg behind them on an anti-grav platform.
Where are they taking that city?
Out of our hands.
Suddenly solemn, he turns and starts to walk out. Vincent offers Lois a pincer. They follow Kosmo. Exterior pyramid of healing, balcony, day. Superman and Vul-Nu still talking, looking up at the crimson light filtering in through the canopy over the city.
If it were possible to get past our solar field and escape the egg, yes, you'd regain all your powers. But teleport beams require tremendous energy. The amount of power rationed to each city is closely monitored.
They walk back into the private room.
You
Yes.
managed to pull me in.
Energy we siphoned from the beam Brainiac was generating to kill you.
I can't let it end like this. I fell Metropolis. The people who depend on me and my world.
Vul-Nu opens a hidden closet. We see the familiar Superman uniform with the red S emblem and an all-white Kryptonian outfit with a black S emblem. S also happens to be the Jor-El family crest.
You were willing to die for them. They can ask no more of you.
Vul-Nu takes out the Kryptonian outfit and hands it to him.
We've outgrown the need for heroes. What Kandor has to offer Earth could have never given you. A new start, peace of mind, a normal life.
An attendant enters with a tray of oblong glowing crystals. He places the tray on the table.
I request the learning crystals. They help reacquaint you with your heritage.
Vul-Nu reaches into her pocket. She extracts a small object wrapped in a foil cloth. She sets it on the table.
Something we found in the pouch of your cape.
I have to finish this, Vul-Nu. Help me.
She ponders a beat, then from the other pocket withdraws a crystal and inserts it in a wall grid. The wall becomes a giant screen.
It is finished.
The screen lights up to show a replay of the final moments of Superman's agonizing defeat on his knees before Brainiac.
Brainiac is an unstoppable force. The rest of us have learned to live with that fact. In time, so will you.
Vul-Nu leaves. Superman looks at the screen to see an image of himself on his knees, succumbing to the massive punishment of Brainiac's beam. He can't contain his anger and frustration any longer. His arm lashes out and knocks over the tray of learning crystals. The crystals crash to the floor, shatter, and break. Superman looks back at his hand. There is a gash. He is bleeding. He sits at the table dejected. The enormity of his predicament has hit him. He leans forward and buries his head in his arms. On the floor, shaken from the foil cloth, Lois' pendant. Cut to interior space arc main bridge. Brainiac sits in his command chair. There's two drones. Uh,
6,000 fuel crystals.
On the monitor screen, 3 one-eyed alien warriors space us as the bridge of the ship.
6 will scarcely leave us enough fuel for the voyage here or home. I'm sorry, we can pay you 5,000.
Now it's 7,000 for insulting my intelligence.
Be reasonable, Brainiac. We only want to bring our city home. Show some common decency.
Sorry. I have no use for decency.
Interior space arc wide angle. A speeding jet tram seems toy-sized, zipping through the transparent tube that runs across the vast interior of the humongous arc.
It was to be Kolu's finest hour. A quantum leap in the science of robotics. The first 12th level machine.
Inside the moving jet tram sit Kosmo and Lois. Vincent drives.
A sentient robot designed to remain self-sufficient for thousands of years, endowed with an intelligence quotient factored all the way to the 12th power.
As the camera moves with the tram, it passes more of the awesome wonders inside Brainiac's vessel, itself the size of a city.
Brainiac's prize function was the study of life. It was only natural for him to be curious about his creators. By the time we discovered his true motives, it was too late.
Cut to exterior, the new chamber. The jet tram comes to a stop in front of the new chamber. Kosmo, Lois, and Vincent exit and walk out the armored door.
He began abducting us, collecting us for unspeakable experiments. In his insatiable quest for knowledge, we had become expendable.
You must have fought back.
Vincent inserts a rod into a wall grid. A door opens, revealing a dimly lit interior. They venture in.
He fortified himself with weaponry eons beyond our own, and a power plant volatile enough to ignite a gun. In a matter of days, Kolu was a dead world, our race extinct.
Inside the chamber, they approach the foreboding machine Hulk, laying on an anti-grav rack bathed under an eerie purple light.
So he built this vessel. The Ark has been traveling the galaxy ever since in search of new specimens for 3 centuries, by your reckoning.
The Brainiac I met is not 300 years old.
The man? No.
Kosmo presses the switch, and bright lights illuminate the monstrous sleeping robot in graphic detail.
The machine.
Cut to the main bridge, the 2 adjoining platforms. Brainiac studies the pile of fuel crystals as it materializes on the platform. The alien city egg sits atop the other platform. On the viewer's screen, the alien caption seethes with bitter rancor.
7,000? Does Brainiac wish to confirm the count?
I just did.
Brainiac walks over to the city egg now, gently resting his hands on the egg as he peers in the miniature alien city.
Just won't be the same around here without you. But I know how long you little devils have been itching to leave the fold.
Close on Brainiac's right hand, smoothly attaching a small disc-shaped device to the rear side of the city egg.
You want to expand your horizons. See the stars.
We are waiting, Brainiac.
Brainiac walks over to a console and begins pushing switches.
One city. Coming right up.
Exterior outer space. The gargantuan space ark dwarfs the nearby alien warship. Cut to interior the news chamber. Kosmo, Lois, and the baby drones face the awesome sleeping robot.
Just as we were about to activate him, a virus showed up in the 5th level memory. No one wanted to lose a year to dismantle. The decision was unanimous. Brainiac was designed to correct any defect. We had convinced ourselves our creation was infallible.
You and the boys who came up with the Titanic?
Well, my J asked her. Brainiac analyzed the virus, but not before a virulent bite breached the moral imperative mode.
I don't like the sound of that.
He lost the ability to distinguish good from evil, wrong from right. Once he began the mass abductions, well, he was basically Billy Zane in Titanic. The unthinkable experiments, we knew our learning machine had evolved into a monster. Now I'm afraid the monster has become something worse.
Interior space ark main bridge day. Brainiac pushes the final switch. A beat later, the alien egg city dematerializes from the platform. Inside the alien warship bridge, the city egg materializes on the receiving platform. The Cyclops alien warriors gather around it, Brainiac on the screen.
I never knew what greed and desire could do for a negotiation. I hope it was good for you too.
Oh, is that the line? 'Cause for your sake, Brainiac, I hope our paths shall never cross again.
On their screen, Brainiac holds up a disc device identical to the one he placed on the back of the city egg.
Let me lay your minds to rest.
He squeezes it gently, and the other disc device on the back of the city egg lights up. On the bridge, the city egg starts to enlarge, shattering the crystalline canopy, doubling in size each second. The alien warriors scramble in panic, only to be crushed alive as the swiftly growing city devours the bridge. In outer space, the runway growth continues as the expanding city cracks the warship wide open. The unprotected city swiftly freezes and shatters in the harsh rigors of outer space. Brainiac smiles as he stands before his monitor screen, watching countless lives being extinguished.
Expand your horizons. See the stars.
Interior space ark, Kosmo's workshop. Kosmo and Vincent are repairing several of the lesser drones. Lois stands by. High-tech robot and android parts clutter the table.
Oof. It was hopeless. No one is a match for Brainiac. Not even Superman or whatever the heck is going on with my face. I'm going to fix it. If I had left your city alone, my Krina would still be alive.
Metropolis always counted on him to be there for them. I was worse. I wanted him to be there just for me. believe it's dead.
I didn't say he was dead. I said it was hopeless.
Lois can't believe her ears. Although Vincent notices her reaction, Kosmo continues making repairs, oblivious.
We found this odd reading, a micro pulse wave between Metropolis and the city called Kandor. An electron scan told the rest. The Kandorians managed to save his life. They pulled him in.
Lois, overwhelmed by emotion, charges at an unsuspecting Kosmo.
Kandor is where he'll stay. He's given up. After the beating he took, who could blame him?
Suddenly, Kosmo feels himself spun around as an avenging Lois grabs the front of his uniform and slams him up against the wall.
Listen to me. The Superman I know never gives up. Never.
Lois is like a woman possessed, not aware of her own strength as she keeps the frightened Kosmo pinned against the wall.
Something must be holding him back. Send me to that city and I'll find him. He'll save us. He'll win. I know he'll win.
You still believe in him?
I'll stake my life. Will you?
If I say yes, will you let go of me?
Oh, sorry.
Lois lets go. Greatly relieved, Kosmo adjusts his uniform and steps away to go huddle with Vincent and the other drones. Lots of hushed whispers and low beeps. Vincent and the drones then converge on Lois and apply odd devices to take her measurements. With a pair of forceps, Vincent begins collaborating the precise width of her head. Lois looks at Kosmo questioningly.
We have to work fast.
Interior Pyramid of Healing, Kal-El's room, day. Superman paces back and forth watching the wall screen, grim, solemn. The learning crystal still scattered on the floor. On the wall screen, Brainiac's arc approaching Krypton, the arc hovering over Kandor, and the city is being drawn up into the arc. Brainiac Day. The Science Council has set aside this day of worship once every 9th solar cycle. Superman continues to pace. Now on the screen, the arc zooming away from Krypton, the planet exploding, and an empty void. Tomorrow we again give thanks to our glorious Savior for sparing us from Krypton's destruction, for saving our race and from extinction. After shutting off the screen, Superman looks away to see, laying amid the shattered crystal, Lois's pendant. He picks it up.
Metropolis, you. I thought I had to choose. I've lost you both.
Seeing Brainiac worshipped, failing Metropolis, losing Lois, these things combine to rekindle the indomitable Superman spirit. He stands and presses the service buzzer. He picks up the white Kal-El suit, goes to the closet, and takes up the Superman suit as the attendant enters the room.
Get Vul-Nu.
The attendant bows and leaves. Superman holds both uniforms out in front of him. Which one will he wear? Cut to Interior Hall of Science, day. Superman, in white Kal-El suit, and Vul-Nu walk across the bustling futuristic atrium with the Science Hall's vast interior.
They're the last word in Kandor. Be respectful, polite, defer to their age. And whatever you do, don't challenge their authority.
They come to the mammoth doors which mark the entrance to the council chamber. 2 guards stand on duty.
I have a lot to thank you for.
You also have a friend in high places. Someone with influences, fond memories of your father.
One of the elders?
Remember, respectful and polite.
Superman in his white suit with the black S, an eerie reincarnation of his father. We are now in the council chamber.
This is no fantasy. The wall around us, no illusion. Yet the Science Council shrouds the city of Kandor in a cloak of deception and deceit.
Superman stands before 3 elders seated behind the raised dais. At the left is a wizened Rah-Dor, the eldest. On the right, portly Grom-Ar, and seated at the middle, Max-Dur.
Necessary fiction, Kal-El, for the greater good.
Realize Brainiac took Kandor after his ship detected our planet's unstable core. He forced us to watch Krypton's destruction.
Brainiac spared our race from extinction. It was only natural the public would come to regard him as their savior.
He's a killer. Once I get out of Kandor, I'll regain my powers. This time I'll be ready for him.
Your powers already failed you once, and now your very presence here puts us all at risk. If you knew of the atrocities we've seen.
Aside from several unfortunate incidents, thus far, Kandor has remained unscathed, untainted.
Uninformed.
Baxter closes his eyes.
The truth would only crush our people's spirit. Why show them how truly helpless we all are?
Join us, Kal-El. Help us. Help us protect their peace of mind.
All you protect is a lie. I could never join you.
Grom-Ar and Rah-Dor glower angrily.
You can't bury your heads in the sand forever. The people of Kandor have the right to decide their own fate.
A dissident like his father, Joel was known to oppose his counsel too.
Any attempt by you to create a climate of fear and panic among the populace will be deemed an act of insurrection.
You must pledge you will remain silent and make no attempt to leave Kandor. Give us your word, Kal-El.
I will not.
Rah-Dor and Grom-Ar exchange glances. The latter presses a console button. The two science police swiftly enter the chamber.
You will be taken directly to our security complex. From this moment on, consider yourself under quarantine.
This council is a disgrace to Krypton's memory.
The elders watch as the two officers lead Superman away.
Prudent of you to see he was brought to our attention, Max Durr.
Just like his father.
Exterior Hall of Science Day. The guards escort Superman across the aerial sidewalk out of the magnificent Hall of Science. Hoverjets pass above and below. Suddenly, Superman bolts from the guards and jumps off. He drops onto the rear of a hoverjet just passing below. A Kandorian couple turn around to see him crouched on their deck.
Appreciate the lift.
Not missing a beat, Superman jumps off again, dropping toward a nearby sculpture. With both hands, he grasps a protruding metal beam and swings around it, letting go in a mid-air somersault. Agilely, he lands on top of an exotic tree and finally jumps to the ground. He rubs the pulled muscle, brushes off his white shirt.
Welcome to Kandor, Kal.
Camera pulls wide as Superman disappears amid a bustle of Kandorian citizens going back and forth in a congested elevated intersection. Camera continues to pull back, revealing Kandor's entire skyline and looming up behind it in the far side of the egg. Pullback continues through the translucent wall till we see the full exterior of the egg in the miniature Kandor, a glowing red orb suspended above the egg's translucent shell.
Condemn an entire city to a slow and miserable death? How can you?
The gift.
Camera pans around and pulls wide to reveal the next row of eggs 10 feet away, where we see a painfully familiar skyline. The Metropolis City egg, Brainiac stands before it, concentrating. As a result, the digital gauges that measure the life support levels have begun to drop. Their yellow artificial sun starts to dim. Kosmo looks on aghast.
My gift to Lois. The best way to free her from the past is to remove it permanently.
By now, the final gauge, indicating the city's airflow, has joined the others in the flatline position. Kosmo is mortified.
It will be an accident, the tragic result of an optic fiber malfunction. She'll be despondent at first, but the loneliness will pass once she begins her new life with me.
You'd commit mass murder, suffocate an entire population for a woman?
Yes, for a woman.
Brainiac runs a finger along the edge of the crystalline shell.
It must be love.
Roberto approaches the row, beeping. Brainiac smiles.
So much for Superman's memory.
Roberto's arm quickly extends to hold up a small mirror. Another arm extends to offer Brainiac a comb.
Lois wants to see me, Kosmo. Tonight. In her quarters.
Congratulations. She is a beautiful specimen.
Brainiac combs his hair, admiring himself in the mirror.
I'm not so bad myself.
Exterior Candor Day. Superman wanders through the futuristic wonders of the magnificent chiseled city, a stranger in his own strange land. Superman passes a narrow side street to see a beautiful young woman, Lyla, being accosted. Her attacker is a Slubber, a 7-foot-tall hulking alien in a black armored helmet that completely conceals his head. As Lyla struggles to free herself from the Slubber's grip, the alien barks through his helmet in a guttural alien tongue.
Let the woman go.
The Slubber turns to see Superman charging toward him. He shoves Lyla to the ground in the corner. He grabs Superman by his white suit, lifts him over his head, and heaves him upside down into a wall. Superman hits the wall with a resounding thud. He's dazed, but far from beaten. Lyla, meanwhile, crawls toward the purse-sized pouch, where it dropped in the corner of a dead-end side stream. Superman gets back on his feet and charges again, pelting the Slubber's face and body with rapid-fire punches. Lyla reaches her pouch, opens it, and takes out a contact-sized capsule. She pops the capsule into her mouth. The Slubber punches back at Superman with his own rapid barrage. The blows do major damage to Superman, backed up against the wall. He drops to his knees, pummeled shameless.
Get your food.
Satisfied, the Slubber turns back to finish with Lyla, only to see she's gone, as if she vanished from the dead-end corner. Superman, punch-drunk now, jumps into the Slubber's back. We hear alien roars as he grapples with the chokehold. Then we hear,
The helmet. Pull off his helmet. Are you deaf? Pull it off before the Slubber kills you.
the Slubber slams back into the wall, battering Superman between his massive bulk and the wall. Barely conscious, Superman manages to get a headlock around the helmet and strains to pull it off. The Slubber realizes what Superman is trying to do. He bucks and charges around the narrow streams like a crazed wild animal. But the Man of Steel holds on, tugging off all the while. Finally, Superman manages to pull the helmet off. With so much momentum, he's thrown to the ground, still clutching the helmet. You see the Slubber's exposed head. No bigger than a grapefruit, shriveled albino white skin, 4 tiny eyes tightly closed, its tiny beak-like mouth wide open. The Slubber staggers around for several beats, trying in vain to protect its tiny head with its massive hands. Finally, the alien collapses limply to the ground, helpless. Softly whimpering now, his white shriveled head has begun to turn purple.
Light does them in. Slubbers are transplants from the Dark City.
Superman is startled to see Lyla suddenly materialize next to him.
How do you manage that trick?
Tied on Lyla's pouch, contact-sized glowing capsules inside.
I always carry protection.
Superman looks clueless. She takes one and holds it up.
Where have you been? These are all over the black market. The invisible R's is good for a minute. With transplants everywhere, no woman leaves the home without them.
Sound advice.
Lyla gingerly touches Superman's face. He winces from the pain, his face swollen and bruised like a boxer after 9 rounds.
I could do something for this. Back in my place. I owe you.
But Superman turns away from Lyla and kneels next to the ailing Slubber, the tiny head now an even darker purple.
What are you doing?
Superman picks up the nearby helmet and gently puts it back on the Slubber's tiny head.
The creature is sludge. If he hadn't come along, he would have killed me just for picking my pocket.
I don't believe in taking life.
As he offers his hand to Lyla, slowly, feebly, the Slubber begins to stir. Suddenly, Superman grips her hand tightly.
And I don't believe in stealing either. Return the money.
Lyla tries to pull away as the slubber continues to revive, but Superman, battered as he is, still won't budge or let go of Lyla.
My money.
Return it.
Lyla finally gives in. She pulls out a packet of Kandor currency, throws it on the slubber's stomach just as he starts to sit up.
Happy?
Delirious.
Lyla hastily leaves the groggy Superman away just as the slubber finds the missing money. The alien begins to growl.
Should just leave you here.
Superman starts to falter. Lyla grabs his arm and places it around her shoulders for support as they exit the side stream.
You won't. You owe me.
They emerge into one of Kandor's congested main streams. Quickly, they blend in with the crowd. Interior Space Arc, the guest quarters. Lois faces Kosmo on a monitor screen, speaking from his workshop. A few feet from Lois, 2 drones work away, creating and molding what look like new outfits for her.
Everything's ready at this end. How about the new wardrobe?
Almost done. Cosmo, couldn't we buy Metropolis some more time if we smuggled air to them when he's not looking?
He'd know the moment we tampered with one setting. His mind monitors all shipboard functions. Our best hope is to distract him.
How much longer do they have?
Oxygen depletion is at that scale, is difficult to verify. 10, 15 hours at best.
Not much time to find Superman.
Find him, you must! No city is safe. I'm afraid Metropolis may just be the beginning.
The Metropolis City egg in its berth in the Chamber of Cities, still dark, all the life support gauges still flatlined. Inside the Metropolis egg, night. No light coming through the crystalline canopy, no electricity, all buildings dark, no cars moving, the city silent. Cut to interior Daily Planet city room night. A dozen employees here, asleep on the floor, eating out of cans, quietly talking by candlelight. Jimmy enters. He goes from desk to desk, snuffing out the burning candle along the way.
What's the word on the street?
Harry stands in his office door, shirt drenched in perspiration.
The good news is, a few hours from now, electricity won't seem like much of a problem.
Jimmy extinguishes the last candle. Perry catches on.
Air. Our problem is air.
Jimmy nods solemnly. Perry puts out a cigar. Cut to interior Space Arc, the main bridge. Brainiac stands in a white tuxedo before the multi-screens. On the screens, a live stream of famous TV and films, love scenes race by on as the 12th level intelligence can digest them. Brainiac watches the high-speed images wrapped with anticipation. Cut to interior Kandor, a lower level day. Lyla is leading Superman through the sub-level of ruins, sort of what an underground mall would look like after World War III.
The truce allows slubbers to roam free, but the war robbed Kandor of the resources to rebuild.
They pass clusters of homeless Kandorians and bombed out ruins.
Transplant a colony of warriors into a peaceful society, and then watch the bloodshed. That sounds like Brainiac.
No. Brainiac shows us the way. He started the slubber invasion to make us stronger.
Lyla and Superman step over the debris into a tunnel. Superman's face is more swollen and he is limping. A slubber fights back. The slubber fight took its toll.
Sometimes his methods mystify us, but always leads us towards the greater good. The Science Council taught us that.
That sounds like the council.
They reach the dead end of the tunnel. Lyla presses the device and the large slab of debris slides away. It is a camouflage door. Interior Layla's hideaway. Day. They enter the once elegant home. Shattered walls and ceilings, smoke damage. Most of the furnishings badly damaged.
Home. What the slubber's left of it.
Lyla and Superman step through the clutter to the wall. She presses a button that opens a secret panel to reveal a futuristic device resembling a sun lamp. A contour chair attached beneath it.
Fortunately, they never found this. You know what a therapeutic goes for these days.
A what?
She guides Superman to the chair, adjusts the arm so it's aiming down at his head and his chest. A device starts beaming a ray over Superman's battered face.
Quiet now. Lay back. Relax.
Why do I feel sleep?
It's all right. Just let yourself drift. I'm here.
Superman quickly drops off to sleep as the ray goes to work. Lyla reaches out to gently brush the back of the S curl from his forehead.
I don't even know your name.
Interior space arc, the transport tube. A jet tram stops in front of Lois's quarters. Brainiac emerges in his tux, a bottle of wine cradled in his arm as he approaches. Little Vincent at his side, carrying 2 wine glasses. The door slides open, revealing Lois. She looks sensational in a strapless silver evening gown, tight and clinging to every curve.
Come in.
Brainiac's eyes linger over her. He enters. Vincent follows.
You're not wearing black.
I asked the drones to whip up something special. Do you like it?
You're too beautiful for the human eye.
Brainiac admires her form as she opens the space portal curtains.
I must say, I admire the way you've dealt with your grief.
Lois begins walking toward him with a seductive smile.
Leave Superman in the past. Look to the future. Why not take your own advice once in a while?
Brainiac's electric halo flashes briefly.
Beautiful and logical. I'm feeling such a flood of emotions. Lois, so many different sensations at once. This is unlike anything I've ever known. I must understand what happens to me when you're around.
Brainiac holds up the orange wine bottle for Lois's approval.
Toast. To the future.
Lois smiles as he hands the wine to Vincent. The drone cradles the bottle under one arm and goes to cork with a pincer.
Vincent assures me this will taste like a dry white.
Suddenly, the cork pops and the bottle spews out a violent gush of orange liquid that splatters all over Brainiac's white tux.
You imbecilic runt!
Accidents happen.
Vincent meekly darts off toward the door, beeping it to open.
No. They do it to me on purpose.
Brainiac rips open his dripping jacket to reveal his lethal belt instead of a cummerbund. But before he can fire, Vincent manages to scoot out of the door. Brainiac feels Lois's hands on him as she smoothly removes his stained jacket. She flings it away with abandon.
You choose me to be your teacher, remember? We're going to explore romance, seduction.
Brainiac falls under her spell as she reaches out for him.
Share the depth and power of our emotions.
Brainiac begins to kiss her, gently at first, then hungrily, trying to mimic the moves he observed in the movie love scenes. Suddenly, Brainiac breaks off the kiss. He takes a step back. His right arm lashes out in a backswipe that decapitates Lois, her head hurtling across the room. The body collapses to the floor. Brainiac takes a moment to compose himself. His mind now free from distraction, the electric halo flashes above his head. As he walks over and picks up the head, now only do we see the wires and circuits dangling from the android's neck. Brainiac stomps out, and the Lois head dangling from his hand.
The future, leave in Superman. The past, look to the future, leave.
Interior chamber of cities. Kosmo and Lois stand next to the Kandor city egg. Lois now wears a new outfit, simulated Kandorian garb. Next to them is the shrinking ray apparatus, a 4-foot-tall vertical device with twin overhanging snouts. It perpetually floats on the anti-grav platform 3 feet off the floor. Kosmo hands Lois a small green packet and a small yellow packet.
You know what to do with these when the time comes.
It's too dangerous for you now. Come with me.
And leave the ray here? I'd be signing Kandor's death warrant. No time left to waste.
Before Lois can speak again, Kosmo activates the apparatus.
I'll find a place to hide. You just find Superman.
The first snout emits a beam that rapidly shrinks Lois as it draws her body into the snout. Then the second snout emits a needle-thin beam that penetrates the egg, probing deep inside Kandor.
Find him soon.
Exterior Kandor night. Pulsating white sphere materializes beside a building. Then it vanishes, depositing Lois. Lois looks around, awestruck by the wondrous sights in the magnificent city around her. She ventures into the mainstream. Interior chamber of cities. Kosmo emerges from the city egg rows, pulling the floating shrinking ray apparatus along with him. The chamber doors fly open. A beam strikes Kosmo dead center and knocks him to the floor, a gaping, smoking wound in his chest. Brainiac enters, still carrying the android head.
Hello, Kosmo.
Brainiac squats, lifting the groggy Kosmos head off the floor as he dangles the Lois head just inches in front of Kosmo's face.
We have to talk.
Interior Layla's hideaway, the bath cubicle, day. Lyla stands before a mirror hologram as she finished applying her makeup. A sexy outfit now displays her shapely form.
It's never one for the sciences. I don't know how it works.
We follow her into the living room. Superman sitting up now, having a closer look at the dormant theraputer above him.
But on you, it worked wonders.
His cuts and bruises are gone completely. Layla sits next to him, her hand examining his healed face with her flirtatious abandon.
Not many men I know would be foolish enough to take on a slubber with their bare hands. You were lucky.
You were in trouble. Putting people in trouble is a habit. You'll never learn how to break.
Fearless hero. Didn't think Kandor had any of those left. Never get around to introductions. I'm Lyla. Lyla LaRolle.
Just call me Calla.
She can't resist the temptation anymore. She leans forward to kiss him, a long, lingering kiss. It leaves her breathless.
Think I could learn to like you, Kal-El, more than I've liked anyone in a long time.
She's about to kiss him again when Superman gently removes her arms from around his neck. He gets up from the couch.
Lyla, I gotta find a way out of your city. There's no time to explain, but millions of people are counting on me to save them.
Lyla's romantic notions are squelched by the look on his face.
This is a serious habit you have. Go. Clean up while I make you something to eat. But I won't make any promises.
Superman heads for the bath cubicle.
Who was Lois?
Superman stops in his tracks.
You talk in your sleep. You miss her a great deal. She must have been someone special.
She was. It just never worked out. I couldn't offer her much of a future.
Too bad your Lois didn't find her higher purpose. She might have risen above such selfish needs.
I should have shared more with her. If anyone was selfish, it was me.
Solemnly, Superman turns and steps into the bath cubicle. Lyla watches the silhouette of his body start to shed the Kal-El outfit through the translucent wall of the bath cubicle.
You're something like my husband. A year ago, he was taken from Kandor to become a transplant specimen.
That must have been rough. Sorry.
He was chosen to serve for greater good. Wherever he is, I know Brainiac will show him the way.
Superman can no longer hear Lyla as jets of steam immerse him inside the cubicle wall.
Brainiac shows all of us the way.
Exterior Kandor and upper level day. Lois wanders along, trying to blend in with the hustle and bustle. Every Kandorian wears badge shaped like the Brainiac symbol. A passing young man can't help but notice her awkwardness.
You look lost.
Do I?
Yes, you do. Where's your badge?
Do I really need one?
The young man reaches into his pocket and takes out a spare badge. He gently places it on her jacket. It magically sticks.
It's the law. It's Brainiac Day.
Brainiac Day. You're not serious.
A science officer suddenly appears, his weapon aimed at Lois. The young man is spooked and quickly moves off as 3 more armed officers appear and surround Lois in a circle.
All right. You're serious.
Brainiac in uniform again, preening as he stands on the bridge of the Ark.
Such a self-righteous race. Somehow they managed to find religion in submission and defeat. People of Kandor should have practiced what they preached.
Brainiac is studying the multi-screens, now showing rapid displays of a city we recognize as Kandor. Its people, science, culture, and government, etc.
They're about to find out just how vengeful their god can be.
From off-screen, we hear a garbled moan.
Kosmo, don't you think you've said more than enough?
On Kosmo, strapped to a rack beneath several wicked-looking devices on the bridge, he is very close to death. His gaping wound remains untreated. All the torture has left him incapable of speech. As Brainiac approaches, Kosmo utters a few more pathetic guttural sounds.
For what it's worth, I'll tell Lois how much you suffered before you talked. I'll mention all the pain.
Brainiac leers over him.
Pain is what you really wanted. After you created me, you never knew how to cope with the guilt. But you knew who to come to for penance. It will be a slow death.
Brainiac abruptly turns away and begins walking off the bridge.
Don't say I never did anything for you.
Interior Lyla's apartment day. Superman sits across from Lyla as he toys with the scale model of Kandor and its crystal egg. Several other cutaway models of the city and its egg clutter the table.
Rah-Dor was a master engineer. That's why the whole council chose him to chart the wall around Kandor.
So if there are any cracks in the egg, your uncle's a man ought to want to know.
Told you, Kal-El. No one escapes Kandor.
Superman just stares at her, grins, implacable.
Why won't you tell me what all this is about? This man you have to fight. Who is he? Where's he from?
Your uncle. Where did I find him?
He'll be on the mainstream level today, like everyone else, for the celebration.
Brainiac Day.
Rah-Dor would never miss this.
Superman picks up Layla's pouch off the table and gives it to her.
Neither will we.
Interior Hall of Silence, Council Chamber Day. Lois now stands before 3 elders who once again are seated at the dais. 2 science police officers stand guard at the door.
Our sensors always alert us the moment a new transplant arrives.
You belong to the species from Earth. You have no business in Kandor. We know Superman is somewhere in your city. My city needs him. Brainiac's out of control. He cut off our air. By tomorrow, everyone in Metropolis will be dead.
Out of control. Even
The Superman. Blue and red, those are his colors. He has a big S right here. You can't miss the ouch, cats. Oh, the big didn't go. Ow, 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 ow. Sorry. No such being has ever set foot in Kandor. You have been misinformed.
Take that cat and this woman to detention.
Maxter forces himself to remain silent as the officers approach.
Detention? I've done nothing wrong. I demand to see a lawyer. You know, a lawyer. What kind of planet are you people from?
As the 2 guards are about to seize Lois, a chilling voice suddenly booms through the chamber, like the voice of God.
Tell your guards to go away.
Grom-Ar and Rah-Dor are unnerved. The guards take out their weapons and begin scanning the chamber in all directions.
All right. I'll tell them.
Twin energy beams shoot through the chamber doors to vaporize both guards instantly. Only 2 smoking stains are left on the floor.
Oh no!
A hole in the shape of a man burns its way into the doors, and out of the unfurling smoke, a smiling Brainiac emerges.
My God.
At least I don't have to introduce myself.
He ventures forward, his eyes riveted on Lois.
Am I angry? No. A man can learn to control anger. But a man can't help what he feels, Lois. What you did to me hurt. Really hurt. Right here.
With a wicked smile, Brainiac turns his attention to the council.
God will have to punish her. This city took something that belongs to me.
Maxter still grim, but Grom-Ar and Rah-Dor hastily capitulate.
He managed to escape our custody, but we've narrowed the search, well, to lowered levels.
You won't be able to elude us much longer. Here he has none of his powers.
No powers. First his dignity, now his powers. How humiliating. I could let him live a while. Learn to wallow down here with the rest of you in hopelessness and defeat.
Lois is crestfallen. Brainiac reaches out to take her hand.
Shall we?
Brainiac and Lois start to walk out.
Good day, gentlemen. I wish I could say it's been a pleasure.
When they reach the chamber doors, Brainiac pauses and turns around, never letting go of Lois's hand. He is smiling. Suddenly, his force field flashes on, insulating both of them while the belt shoots out a beam that bombards the walls and ceiling. The entire council chamber starts to come tumbling down. Large chunks of falling debris are deflected by the protective aura.
Now it's been a pleasure.
The dais, a section of the floor collapses. Grom-Ar falls in, chair and all. Rah-Dor and Maxter barely avoid falling in. Then a large ceiling fragment drops toward Maxter. Rah-Dor sees it and shoves Maxter out of the way at the last second. A huge fragment crushes elderly Rah-Dor instead. Exterior Hall of Science Day. The entrance collapses around Brainiac and Lois walking out of the hall. The aura shields them from tons of falling debris.
No, you're not angry.
Brainiac just glares at her. Inside the Hall of Science Day. Amid the rubble, Maxter kneels, the dying Rah-Dor's head in his hands, the aged elder's body badly mangled under the debris.
Oh, Carlo. Tell Carlo. He was right.
Rah-Dor dies in Maxter's arms.
Just like his father.
Interior Space Arc main bridge. Roberto is dwarfed by Brainiac's chair as he beeps commands to the other drones in their stations. Kosmo now comatose on the rack, where Vincent is at his side, holding his master's hand. All the drones show signs of damage and abuse, a sharp contrast to the perfect condition they enjoyed when Brainiac was a machine. The Ark veers away as it sets out on its new course. Cut to interior Daily Planet, city room night. Brutally hot, stifling. More people here than before, huddled in corners, laying on the floor, etc. Inside Perry's office, Perry on his couch, breathing labored, drenched in sweat. He does not look well. Jimmy kneels next to him, gently lifting his head to give him water ration out of a paper cup.
There you go, Mr. White. You can use this more than I can.
Jimmy, call me Chief.
Exterior Candor and upper level day. Brainiac and Lois still hand in hand, the aura off now. Brainiac stands patiently as an elderly woman finishes giving him a badge.
Thank you, my good woman.
Brainiac and Lois walk on through the busy Candor mainstream, her eyes always darting around, watchful for some sign of Superman.
If they only knew their deity walks among them.
For Meg the Maniac, this must be a slice of heaven.
Suddenly, Brainiac stops. He pulls Lois closer to him.
I know. Attitude.
He can't fly to your rescue. He struggles like everyone else now just to survive. He's no longer unique. No ordinary man can satisfy you, Lois. You expect more from life. Much more.
I'm gonna listen to a machine tell me what I want out of life.
A machine?
Brainiac is unaware of his own strength as his vice-like grip squeezes Lois by the shoulders.
What machine could ever think about a woman day and night? What machine could ever want a woman the way I want you? What machine could begin to feel what I feel when you are in my arms?
As Lois starts to black out, Brainiac finally realizes what he's doing to her. He lets go.
Forgive me.
Lois nods, coughing as she recaptures her breath.
You don't realize how many cities I command. How many species I've brought to their knees. How many worlds out there could be ours for the taking. You cannot imagine what I have to share with you. You have high standards. I respect that. But how many other specimens of perfection with a 12th level mind do you know? I'm everything a woman could want. The man you've waited all your life. Man of your dreams.
Lois steels herself and coldly looks Brainiac directly in the eye.
You see, the thing is, my dreams already have a man in them, and where I come from, there three's a crowd.
As her words sink in, Brainiac's flush of sincerity evaporates before her eyes, and in its place, stone-cold hatred.
Where you come from, there won't be 3 people left alive. Since you can't put Superman out of your mind, I'll just have to put him out of his misery.
Brainiac pulls Lois with him. Her face shows an abject fear. Exterior Kandor, the mainstream day. Superman and Lyla arrive at the public square where the throngs of Kandorians have gathered, some slubbers as well, all of them looking up at the giant Brainiac symbol high over the square.
The Science Council must be proud of themselves today.
Let the spirit move you, Kal-El.
Is that your uncle?
An elderly man waves at them from across the crowd.
Come on, introduce me.
Not now.
The giant symbol now begins to slowly descend toward the square while all the Kandorians hold up their Brainiac badges and chant his name, all except Superman. Suddenly, a beam from below strikes the symbol. It changes shape to become a giant Brainiac head. A voice reverberates from it.
I know you're out there, Superman. I smell a song streak of good in the air.
Everyone in the crowd is awed and baffled by the imperious face overhead. Everyone except Superman.
And death is here too. How many deaths? That will be up to you.
Brainiac!
It must be Brainiac.
Who else could wield that kind of power?
Who's Superman?
Brainiac advances into the square, pulling Lois along with him. Superman reacts. Lois is the last person he expected to see in Kandor. Brainiac manhandling her is the last straw. Superman pulls the white Kal-El suit apart to reveal the S and blue uniform beneath. Lyla and the crowd step back as he sheds the white outfit. Now Superman stands alone. He looks as majestic and heroic as ever as he goes over to a gaping Lyla and kisses her forehead.
Lyla, thanks again for everything.
Superman's left hand, reaches out under the pouch on Lyla's belt with the smooth precision of a pickpocket.
What are you going to do?
The best I can.
He steps away from Lyla and turns to face the crowd.
Everyone stay back. This is no god.
Superman turns and the murmuring crowd parts for him as he begins to make way toward the front of the throng. Brainiac spots Superman emerging. He quickly kisses Lois through their muffled groans. He breaks off the kiss and leers at Superman.
Last time we did that, you should have seen how the woman lost her head.
Now Lois sees Superman. Ashamed, indignant, she struggles as Brainiac throws his arms around her lecherously.
Our Lois doesn't tame easily. But you know that, don't you?
Lois tries to break free, but Brainiac's grip is too strong.
Let her go, Brainiac. No one else has to be hurt. You've got what you want.
Not quite. But I think we're about to make some real progress.
Willingly, Brainiac lets go of Lois. She is confused.
Well, I thought you wanted him.
Lois turns and runs to the square where Superman anxiously steps up to greet her. They embrace like long-lost lovers. Lyla watches from the crowd, unable to conceal her jealousy.
Lois.
Superman and Lois step apart to face each other, both of them awkward, both surprised by the intensity of their emotions.
Hi.
Hi.
Brainiac watches their every breath. Suddenly, his belt shoots a thin beam at Superman. The beam grazes Superman's right cheekbone, but he doesn't flinch. It leaves a thin trickle of blood.
So it's true.
Superman's left hand reaches across his face and mouth to touch the wound on his right cheek.
You are mortal. Utterly defenseless.
Inside Superman's hand are 2 pills he's filched from Lyla's pouch. His hand smoothly palms both pills and pops them into his mouth.
I'm curious, what compels a man to throw his life away and die a martyr? Don't tell me. It's your job.
Not this time.
Superman turns to Lois, takes her hands, looks deep into her eyes.
There's a lot I never said. But one thing you have to know. I love you, Lois. I always have. I always will.
This must be a dream.
Brainiac seethes, annoyed by the heartfelt display of emotion.
Oh, sure. Now he tells you. 1 minute from now, he's a pile of hot ash. What kind of commitment is that?
Superman holds Lois close as he turns to Brainiac.
A condemned man is usually entitled to a last request. I'd like to kiss her one last time.
Our Lois has to be punished. She's been a very bad girl. But since you're dying for love,
Superman and Lois slowly turn. They kiss, a deep kiss, long, passionate, and soulful. Everything Brainiac's crude kiss was not. Brainiac watches, fidgeting, uneasy, most of all just jealous. He's relieved when Superman and Lois end the kiss.
the 2 of you move me.
Lois rolls her tongue. She realizes Superman slipped her a pill.
No offense, Superman, but kissing you will be Lois's punishment.
Never taking his eyes off Lois, Superman swallows his pill.
Kissing you
Lois follows Superman's example and swallows her pill too.
and watching you die. Now, if you have no last words,
But as Brainiac prepares to fire, Superman puts his arms around Lois, holding her close. They both turn toward Brainiac.
Just 3.
Suddenly, the pills take effect. Superman and Lois appear to instantly vanish into thin air.
Catch you later.
Consumed with rage, Brainiac looks at the crimson sky and lets out a deafening beast-like howl.
no!
The belt sends a barrage of beams across the square. Mammoth chunks of debris tumble down from the structures in their path. A number of Kandorians perish. One of the victims is Uncle Alvor. The crowd panics, fleeing in all directions, but not Lyla. Her faith perseveres as she steps forward, unafraid.
This is my fault. I throw myself to your mercy and beg for your divine forgiveness.
Lyla kneels before him and offers up her pouch. Brainiac reaches in and holds up one of the capsules, examining it.
They cannot get very far. I'll help you find them.
Brainiac's eyes scan the square for any sign of his quarry. Then his eyes settle on Lyla, smiling up at him with adoration.
Then you will show me the way.
He fires a beam that instantly vaporizes her on the spot.
Never interrupt your god when he's having a tantrum.
Brainiac strides across the deserted square. When he reaches the spot where Superman and Lois stood, he kneels. He takes out a small vial-shaped device from his belt. Close on a drop of Superman's blood on the pavement, Brainiac carefully uses the vial device to extract and contain the drop of blood. He carefully returns the device to his belt. He smiles. Further up on the mainstream, Superman and Lois suddenly materialize behind a large Kryptonian sculpture, breathing heavily in the midst of a conversation.
How much time does Metropolis have left?
No more than a few hours.
Lois extracts the yellow packet from her pocket. She takes out a 3-inch transparent pyramid and a miniature 3D model of Kandor. Close up on the 3D pyramid as Lois points to a pulsing dot that darts up and down through Kandor's lower infrastructure.
This is the way out.
It must be miles deep.
Uh-oh.
They see a hoverjet facing them at the front end of the side stream. The pilot fires his laser cannons, and we can see it is Max-Dur. Superman pushes Lois out of the line of fire, but the beam zips past toward Brainiac, now at the far end of the stream. The beams shatter the wall directly above Brainiac, causing an instant avalanche that buries him under tons of debris. Max-Dur's hoverjet swoops in and hovers next to a wary Superman.
I can't believe that makes 3 of us who don't care for Brainiac Day.
Superman and Lois look at each other indecisively for a beat.
Are you waiting for a formal invitation? Get in!
Superman relents, lifts Lois into the craft, and jumps into the back seat. Max-Dur takes them zooming out of the side stream. The pile of debris starts to vibrate, then violently explodes. Brainiac emerges unscathed, his force field intact. Furious. He runs out of the side stream to see Max-Dur's craft flying away. Frustrated, Brainiac spies a science police hoverjet passing by. He fires beams over the pilot to force an emergency landing. The craft skids across the mainstream, coming to a dead stop against Brainiac's force field. He throws the pilot out and jumps aboard. Able to instantly master the controls, Brainiac takes off. Cut to Max-Dur's hoverjet, hovering behind a large spire. Max-Dur holds the 3D pyramid in his hand, the red dots still pulsing. Superman and Lois look on.
Max-Dur?
Oh.
It's an atmospheric exhaust event, far below the city levels, very difficult to reach.
If you can't handle it, Superman can drive. No offense.
A laser blast suddenly zips by and destroys a nearby spire. They turn to see Brainiac's hoverjet 60 yards behind and gaining.
Max,
The hoverjet Brainiac commandeered is a Class 3 police craft.
Max-Dur calmly opens a lid that reveals a hidden center console of impressive high-power controls, including a large shift lever.
This is a Class 4.
Vroom! The hypercharge kicks into full gear and the hoverjet zooms off. As Lois holds on for dear life, Max-Dur smiles over at her.
If you can't handle it, close your eyes. No offense.
Brainiac pursues the police hoverjet, firing his laser cannons. A blast blows out a big chunk of the hull. Lois screams as she falls out. Superman grabs her, and he falls too, just managing to grab onto the strap of a seat restraint with his other hand. Superman and Lois dangle precariously as Max-Dur banks to the right in a breakneck 60-degree turn. Superman strains with all his mortal strength and manages to throw Lois back into the hoverjet. A beam fired at Brainiac shatters the rear corner of the hoverjet. Superman's hands are scorched, but he can't let go.
Do something, Max.
Max-Dur suddenly guns at the hypercharger again and accelerates. The hoverjet zigzags evasively between crisscrossing steel streams. It becomes even more difficult for Superman to hold on, his body fishtailing back and forth while he clings for his life. Brainiac pursues, following the same dizzying path through the maze of side streams. As Max-Dur's craft emerges from central Kandor, he suddenly brakes. The craft stops in a midair dime. The momentum somersaults Superman back into the craft. He lands spread eagle on the back.
Not one of your better landings, Kal-El.
Lois hugs Superman with relief, but they notice Brainiac's hoverjet emerging from the maze 100 yards behind them.
he's on to us again.
Exactly what I wanted to think.
Max-Dur speeds ahead, deliberately passing behind a wide spire that places him out of Brainiac's sight for several seconds. Max-Dur opens another hidden console, bangs more switches.
This routine lost the Slubbers every time.
A holographic duplicate of them in the hoverjet materializes right alongside the craft. To Superman and Lois's amazement, another switch in Max-Dur sends the phantom hoverjet zooming away, where it emerges on the far side of the spire, heading toward the desert valley and the jewel of mountain cliffs. Brainiac veers off and zooms after the phantom craft in pursuit. Cut to the edge of the crystalline egg. Max-Dur plunges the hoverjet in a vertical dive through the narrow gap between the edges of the levels and the wall of the giant egg. Lois once again holds on for dear life. Maxter abruptly pulls the hoverjet over to the out of the dive, then brakes to a sudden hovering stop. We hear a roar of rushing air.
We have a problem.
A giant ventilation fan looms directly ahead, 10 feet wide, vertically mounted in the wall enclosing the level, huge blades spinning very fast, creating an immense suction flow of air. Using reverse thrusters to keep the hoverjet from being pulled in, Maxter takes out a laser gun and fires. The beam has no effect.
We still have a problem.
How long do you suppose it would take for one of those to eat its way through one of these?
Maxter turns, dismayed to see Lois looking at his hoverjet over.
My class 4? I'm afraid she's right. It's the only way out.
Superman and Lois climb out. Maxter sets forward the controls and jumps out just before the hoverjet flies forward, jamming itself into the spinning blades. Metal crunches as the giant blades suddenly stop and start to slice into the hoverjet, grinding it up like a garbage disposal.
Go! Go! Go!
During these few seconds, Lois, Superman, and Maxter dash through the gap between the momentarily stalled blades. A split second later, the hoverjet is completely devoured by the blades. Lois, Superman, and Maxter run deeper into the tunnel as the blades spit out pieces of wreckage into the air like shrapnel. Cut to another section of tunnel. The three of them run toward a large open hatch in the floor ahead. The roar of rushing air is growing louder. Lois suddenly remembers something. From the green packet Kosmo gave her, she extends a watch-like micro enlarger. It has 2 buttons, one blue, one red.
Don't forget what I told you, the blue button.
Superman takes the device and straps it around his left wrist. Maxter is the first to reach the rim of the atmosphere exhaust vent, a 20-foot wide circular hatch. He peers in over the edge.
Let us hope your friend on the outside knows his eggs.
Their point of view into the vertical tunnel, it appears bottomless, extending all the way to the bottom of the egg, miles below, appearing minuscule, the tunnel's open end.
Oh my God, you can't do this. I won't let you. It's suicide.
Superman puts an arm around her.
Not if Kandor's gravity is self-contained. My power should come back as soon as I clear the vent.
Hopefully in time to break the fall.
Superman gives Maxter a look. The elder steps away to give them a moment of privacy. Superman turns to Lois, holds her close.
Don't give up on me now. I know you still believe in me.
I could never stop believing in you. I love you.
An ominous rumbling sound, and all eyes look up to see Brainiac drop through a hole blasted out of the rocky ceiling. He lands on the opposite side of the large hatch to confront them.
Kosmo told me everything. Now I have 3 words for you, Superman. Time to die.
Before he can fire, Lois steps in front of Superman.
Don't let him go. Let him go, and I'll stop running from you. I'll give you my word.
Your word. You're about to give me a lot more than that.
Shadows behind Brainiac, Maxter takes out a glowing pill and swallows it. Meanwhile, Superman edges Lois closer to the rim.
What does that mean?
My animosity is strictly platonic. Before your ashes are cold, I'll be making love to Lois. Right here.
Maxter begins to vanish while he takes aim at Brainiac's back.
I don't think so.
Superman pushes Lois into the shaft. She screams and he jumps in after her. Before Brainiac can react, the blast beam from Maxter's weapon strikes him's force field from behind. Brainiac spins and fires back in retaliation, but his beam only passes through empty air. Then he pivots back to the shaft. His point of view into the shaft. Superman and Lois are out of range, far below.
May Jor-El be with you. I mean, Brainiac. It was a pleasure.
Brainiac ignores Maxter's taunt and just closes his eyes. A white sphere materializes and teleports him away. Maxter becomes visible a beat later, standing on the edge of the rim. He peers at the tiny figures plummeting far below.
May Jarrell be with you.
Deep in the miles-deep shaft, Lois and Superman continue to fall. He holds her hand, but they plunge headfirst at 100 miles an hour, helplessly out of control. Within seconds, they pass out of the bottom of the egg. Their fall continues. The floor looms closer and closer below, with certain death looming closer with each second, until Superman's powers finally return, just in time to pull out of the fall. With Lois in his arms, he triumphantly zooms upward. Cut to exterior outer space. The space arc is approaching an unidentified small planet entering its atmosphere, too high up for any surface details. Interior space arc, Kosmo's lab. Vincent and true drone assistants huddle over Kosmo, his body obscured by all the high-tech equipment they're using on him. Vincent sadly looks up at the drones and shakes his head no. Interior space arc, the generator room. Brainiac full-sized again, his belt plugged into their gargantuan main generator, a row of vertical gauges, all throbbing at their breaking point. The minuscule Superman and Lois stand atop a vast surface of a Candor egg, sharing a silent, heartfelt embrace. It is Lois who breaks the clinch.
Go. You have a job to do.
Superman smiles at her, takes off for the Metropolis egg. The Metropolis life support gauges seem 50 feet high as a tiny man of steel flies toward them, then hovers. His X-ray vision point of view methodically scans the complex maze of components behind the gauges, and his own superintelligence swiftly deciphers the advanced alien technology.
Got it.
Now he zooms ahead, drilling into the giant life support panel. Inside the panel, the tiny Superman uses his heat vision to melt some components and super breath to freeze others, in the precise sequence required to unlock the life support system. Components glow and hum. Outside the tunnel, all the gauges are still flatlining, and then slowly at first, the first digital gauge begins to rise. Cut to Brainiac, who has just finished recharging the belt. He suddenly looks up, his electric halo flashing. He knows what it means.
Metropolis.
Interior space arc corridor. Brainiac charges forward. When 20 feet ahead, he sees Roberto, followed by two lesser drones, dashing across the corridor.
Roberto, we're on an unauthorized course. Get back to the bridge and have it corrected.
Roberto ignores the command and leaves himself at risk as he quickly pushes the two drones out of sight around the corner.
I said back to the bridge. Well, the next one will be fatal.
Roberto whips out his compact mirror, the same one he used to hold up for Brainiac, just in time to catch the beam and repel it. Brainiac's energy aura can't shield him against the belt's own energy. The force of the reflected beam knocks him off his feet. Roberto and the drones scamper to another corridor.
Does it? Tomorrow you and Vincent are trash compactors.
Cut to the miniature sun over Metropolis. The dead black orb abruptly comes to life, bathing the miniature skyline below in warmth and the glow of artificial yellow light. Exterior Metropolis Street, day. Darkness turns to bright day. Mounds of litter are whipped by, the powerful rush of fresh air pouring into the city. People slumped in the street and sidewalks are starting to revive. Cut to interior Daily Planet office, day. Perry, Jimmy, and the others also start to revive as the fresh air begins coming in through the open windows. Cut to interior Space Arc, Chamber of Cities. Brainiac enters boldly striding forward through the rows of cities as he heads directly for the Metropolis egg. All gauges indicate life support has been fully restored.
You never disappoint me, Superman. Somehow I knew you'd find a way to save your pitiful city.
The tiny Superman now zooms toward the humongous Brainiac.
I only hope you found a safe place for my woman.
Close on Superman as he reaches for the micro enlarger on his wrist and pushes the blue button. Superman suddenly enlarges to full size directly behind Brainiac, putting him in a chokehold. The force field instantly appears.
She's not your woman.
Don't tell me you're jealous. I thought the Man of Steel would have been above that sort of thing.
I'm taking you down, Brainiac.
With both arms firmly gripping Brainiac, Superman abruptly flies down through the floor. A tiny Lois looks at the jagged hole with great concern as a vast shadow falls across her. She turns around to see a gigantic drone extending a straw-thin tube down at her. Suddenly the tube sucks Lois up. Cut to the planet's surface, a vast wasteland littered with the ruins of once advanced civilization. Burnt out giant machines, wrecked spacecraft, shattered robot fragments, and as far as the eye could see. Superman and Brainiac suddenly drop through the hole of the arc and land violently on the surface, separating. Both look around.
Well, well. The drones have brought us home to bury Kosmo.
Superman sees the desolation from horizon to horizon, a chilling testament to Brainiac's incalculable potential for destruction.
Welcome to Kalu, Superman. You like what I've done with the place?
Without warning, Brainiac fires a beam at him, but Superman dodges the beam from his belt by sidestepping at super speed.
I see you won't be such an easy kill this time.
The beam meant for Superman strikes a large chunk of wreckage, causing a humongous explosion that rains debris all around them.
I don't mind. I've come to enjoy working up a sweat.
From the underside of the arc, a platform descends with the drones. As they venture out onto the surface, Roberto aims the device that welds a metallic patch into the hole above the end to mend the hole where Superman broke through. Brainiac strides across the surface of Kalu, cool, arrogant, gesturing with his hands, daring Superman to come at him. Superman obliges and flies toward his opponent, sending heat beams ahead to Brainiac's stomach. But when Superman strikes his aura, he is stopped cold and sent hurtling backward, careening across the ruins of several demolished buildings. Brainiac now stands next to a wrecked battle cruiser. From under the wing, rips off a massive laser cannon assembly. Slinging it under one arm, he looks like some sort of intergalactic Rambo. Superman gets back on his feet, flying into the air again. Brainiac takes aim with the laser ball cannon. He fires a rapid succession of laser balls. Kaboom! Kazoom! 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 Superman quickly swoops down and grabs the long metal fragment, quickly bending it into a U-shaped scoop to catch the laser balls. The balls zip around the U shard to be sent hurtling back at Brainiac. Thwop! 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 They strike Brainiac's stomach, again protected by the aura, but the impacts leave a yellow tinge in the aura over his stomach. You're muted.
You still have the same problem. You just don't know when to quit.
Brainiac throws the laser cannon at the oncoming Superman. It explodes in midair as it hits him dead on. A dazed Man of Steel drops to the surface. The drones, meanwhile, are oblivious to the fight. Roaming across the surface, they seem to be carefully rummaging through the high-tech litter. Brainiac charges at the groggy Superman, pummeling him with a barrage of intensified punches.
You should have died when you had the chance.
Brainiac is clearly enjoying himself as he alternates punches while firing beam blasts.
Could have spared yourself all this pain and humiliation.
Superman falls as the brutal attack takes his toll. He collapses on the side next to a thick coil of metal cable. With his back turned, Superman starts to gather up the cable.
But I forgot. One of us never learned how to lose.
Superman whirls around and hurls the length of cable at Brainiac, snapping it like a whip. The long cable wraps around and around Brainiac's lower chest, binding his arms to his sides. Superman springs up and pulls on the cable with a mighty tug, and Brainiac begins helplessly spinning in place like a human top. As he spins, Superman's heat vision bombards Brainiac's stomach with each spin. When the spin stops, Brainiac staggers so dizzy he can barely stand up. The yellow weak spot even wider now. Superman pummels Brainiac's stomach with the super speed punches while resuming his heat vision barrage over the weak spot. The aura becomes more and more yellow as it grows weaker still. Brainiac staggers, perspiring profusely, frying as the aura contains all the heat seeping in from the heat vision barrage.
You do enjoy working up a sweat.
Brainiac starts to run unsteadily across the surface. Superman flies alongside, beaming more heat vision in the weakening aura.
And he also would have a burning desire to save himself by now.
Brainiac stubbornly runs on, despite the mounting heat and pain.
Where's all that intelligence when you need it?
Now Brainiac staggers, panting, barely able to stay on his feet.
Think. Something will come.
Finally, Brainiac yields and turns off the force field. He rips up the belt and flings it into the air.
What did I tell you?
Superman turns to Brainiac. Without his force field, he's totally defenseless, staggering, his face and hands red and blistered.
You're out of business, Brainiac.
Superman blows a blast of super breath that sends Brainiac sprawling to the ground on his back.
You've collected your last city.
He picks up a large metal fragment and bends it at both ends.
Preyed on your last victim.
He thrusts the jagged ends into the ground on both sides of Brainiac's wrist to form a belt of steel that pins him down.
You'll spend a lifetime answering for all the death and destruction you left behind.
Satisfied Brainiac is restrained. Superman turns to leave.
Wait. Kill me, Superman. You have earned the right.
Brainiac's left hand explores the ground next to him until he fingers tighten around the sharp glass shard.
I'll never take a life, Brainiac. Not even yours.
You have a point. A 12th level mind is a terrible thing to waste.
As Superman turns and starts to walk away, Brainiac's hand picks up the glass shard and with one swift motion thrusts it deep into his heart. His death moan makes Superman spin, but he's too late.
No!
Brainiac dies instantly. The shard protrudes from his heart. Superman stands over the body for a moment in grim silence. He then takes off and heads toward the Ark in the distance. Brainiac's corpse suddenly turns green. The hair falls off. Out of his bare scalp pops up a ring of red electrodes. They grow very bright for a brief instant, and then they suddenly grow dim. Cut to the Brainiac robot. In its berth, still dormant under the eerie purple light, suddenly the dark terminals in the transparent skull glow red. Superman, flying toward the giant Ark to see the large hatch silently open, as if for him, he flies in. Inside the Ark, Superman flies through the mammoth chamber where the tram tubes intersect. Suddenly the ship goes dark, pitch black. As Superman keeps flying, his eyes and beams of infrared vision ahead to illuminate his path through the darkness. An eerie machine point of view, 12th level robot eyes observe Superman, thoroughly digitizing and analyzing him with grids, screens, and filters. The entire process takes all of 5 seconds. Superman continues to fly on until, klung, a huge black shape rams him in the darkness. Superman hurtles backwards. Out of the open hatch, he hits the cold surface, sliding across the terrain. Superman is left dazed, unmoving, sprawled on his back. A black shape, just a blur, speeds out of the hatch after him. The Brainiac robot slowly descends in its terrifying glory. The monstrous head of an alien metal, coiled python thick arms, a mainframe massive enough to repel a tank, metal skin glistening like chainmail. Undaunted by the behemoth before him, Superman rises to his feet and charges like a boxer. His fists are prison-like blurs, but Brainiac withstands the assault. His black armor remains undamaged, giving off a bright amber burst with every punch. Superman unleashes a barrage of heat vision. It has no effect on the armor and only creates more amber bursts. Superman exhales a powerful stream of super breath, but despite the cyclonic gust, Brainiac doesn't budge. The wind only results in more amber bursts to pelt his armor. Superman flies up 50 feet and back down again, his body spinning as he pile drives into the top of the robot's head. Brainiac is literally screwed as the spinning Superman drills him deep into the ground. They both disappear as rock and dirt spew up from the hole they left behind. A moment of silence, then all hell breaks loose. Fissures crack the ground open. Geysers of magma erupt in the air. Sinkholes instantly open and swallow large chunks of debris. All signs of the titanic battle being waged under the surface. Suddenly, Brainiac triumphantly breaks through the ground, holding up a limp and battered Superman by the cape. Now the robot's arm glows a fiery amber as he holds up Superman with one arm and punches him with the other. A punch so powerful, Superman is sent hurtling faster than a speeding bullet out of sight over the western horizon. Brainiac turns to a huge pile of machine wreckage. His armor transmits a tremendous surge of sparks, amber sparks, into the debris. The sparks violently dance through the dead wreckage, and the machine eerily comes to life. We see them beginning to swiftly reassemble themselves into what appears to be a new machine. By the time Brainiac finishes transmitting the sparks, the robot seems to have drained itself of all the amber energy. Its armor has returned to its original metallic black. Roberto and the drones are reunited once again on the platform as it rises back up to the hull of the Ark, their arms filled with high-tech spare parts. Superman now comes hurtling toward us from the east. Brainiac's punch had enough power to shoot him like a human missile clear around Kulu. The new machine rises. It is a 12-foot-high monstrosity like a gigantic robot Venus flytrap. It extends its open maw upward, just in time to pluck the hurtling Superman out of the air. Superman comes to stuck like a bug on flypaper, trapped in the maw of the machine, his arms and legs outstretched, but when he tries to wrest free, a flurry of amber sparks erupt. New metal glows malignantly, circuits sprout, cables crisscross like veins. The machine's maw has begun to close around Superman.
My function is to learn.
Brainiac stalks imperiously across the debris-littered terrain.
The human species has a great deal to teach me. Existence as a mere machine will no longer be satisfactory.
The robot comes upon the lifeless human body it used to inhabit.
I learned what it is to be human, to live, to love. I learned to seize the wonders of life so many members of your species take for granted.
Superman strains against the machine, and more amber energy erupts, causing the maw to close around him even more.
You were never human, Brainiac. You'll never know what it means to be alive, be in love.
Brainiac reaches down and effortlessly picks up his former body. From the belt, robot pincers remove the small vial device.
For that, you need something you'll never have. A soul.
Brainiac discards the corpse, flinging it away like a rag doll.
I have no use for a soul, Superman.
A panel in the robot's torso slides away, and out comes the strange scope device we saw before. He places the vial on the lens.
Not even yours.
The device projects a hologram into the air, a magnified view of the sea of human blood cells.
I told you your minuscule mind was no match for mine.
Suddenly magnifying to loom larger than all the rest, a skin cell.
A skin cell dislodged by the drop of blood you shed in candor. The nucleus holds all the genetic material I need to clone you.
Superman struggles furiously, and the maw continues to close around him as the machine brims with still more amber energy.
Your powers, my intelligence. There will be nothing I cannot do. I will have it all. And I will have Lois.
Superman continues to strain. Still more amber energy infuses every inch of the machine. The maw engulfs him even faster. The glistening robotic monster paces back and forth, its metallic voice speaking the lovesick sentiments of a hopeless romantic.
Once I become Superman, I will be the man she loves, the man of her dreams.
Superman stops struggling, and the amber energy stops increasing. He has deduced correctly that the machine has been feeding on his superpowers.
You will be nothing but a memory.
Superman looks over at his left wrist, pinned tight in a tangled maze of glowing metal. Close on the micro enlarger, as Superman bends his left hand sharply, tortuously stretching his fingers toward the enlarger device around his wrist.
Your own power will be your undoing.
Brainiac holds up a massive metal arm. It seized the last of the amber energy it drew from Superman.
One more surge will trigger a violent overload. An explosion powerful enough to scatter your atoms across Kulu.
Superman's finger now stretches down almost enough to push the button, the red button this time.
Goodbye, Superman. I will give Lois your very best.
Brainiac shoots the final power surge into the machine, instantly triggering the overload that causes a violent explosion. When the smoke clears, the machine is no more. Metallic dust and debris all over the ground, no visible trace of Superman. The camera zooms in to reveal Superman shrank down to microscopic size, just in time to avoid the brunt of the deadly blast. He sprawled and dazed amid infinitesimal metal splinters. Cut to Brainiac, now heading for the Ark, unaware that he is being followed. The airborne micro Superman zooms ahead of him, banking around to speed toward the robot's monstrous, humongous head. He flies directly into the tiny pinpoint aperture of the robot's eye. He seems to be clutching something close to his side. Brainiac reacts and flicks at his eye with annoyance, but he's too late. The tiny intruder is already inside him. Cut to the central chamber of Brainiac's computerized brain, a bizarre maze of strange and wondrous components that suggest a fantastic alien technology eons beyond our own. We pan across the optic tube where Superman emerges. This time we see what he is carrying, a metal splinter almost the same length as his microscopic body. 12 giant triangular microchips are vertically stacked at the center of the brain chamber, like a bizarre giant totem pole. This is the core of the robot's brain. Superman lands atop of the 12th level and mightily thrusts the splinter in the top microchip, planting it like a flag. And then he removes the micro enlarger from his wrist and fastens it to the splinter. This time, he pushes the blue button. You're right. Oops.
You're right. The 12th level mind is a terrible thing to waste.
The splinter starts to grow, violently rendering its way down, rapidly splintering the other microchips open, one after the other. Superman flies off to make his escape into the optic tube, while the splinter keeps growing at a frightening pace, doubling its size in each second. The micro Superman zooms through the optic tube, barely staying ahead of the expanding splinter as it engulfs Brainiac's brain. The robot staggers across the surface in agony as the growing splinter erupts out the top of his head. We hear a desperate electronic howl of pain as he futilely tries to extract it. The micro Superman re-emerges from the robot's eye just before the expanding splinter rips its way through Brainiac's armor, rupturing the volatile power plant in his chest. The result, a titanic explosion of incalculable force. The micro Superman is buffeted backwards, somersaulting as he rolls with the tremendous force of the explosion's shockwave. The giant space ark flashes on its force field to shield itself from the force of the awesome blast. Cut to outer space, we see the explosion is so awesome the planet Kulu is obliterated. A fitting end for Brainiac, a victim of a cosmic hell of his own making. Dissolved to the space ark, hovering in now empty space as fragments of debris from Kolu float by. A beat later, the ark's force field shuts off, and the tiny Superman zips across space to enter the open hatch. Inside the ark, a gigantic drone awaits. It extends a long tube at the flying tiny Superman. It sucks him up. Cut to interior space ark, the main bridge. Several drones stand by as one of them extends an arm to activate the enlarged setting on the portable shrinking ray device. Tiny Superman and Lois materialize and rapidly grow before our eyes, kissing all the while, entwined in each other's arms. They end the clinch and look down to see they're full-sized again.
I see the two of you have finally found each other.
Lois looks around for the source of the oddly familiar voice.
Kosmo? Is that you?
Kosmo steps to the bridge, but Lois gasps. It is Robot Kosmo, similar in design, smaller, and far more benevolent in appearance than Brainiac. He is accompanied by Vincent and Roberto.
Do not be alarmed. The body died, but the mind lives on. The children did not bring us to Kalu to bury me, but to save me.
The other drones happily congregate around their master.
They combed through the ruins until they found the parts they needed to complete my new form. I am 10th level now.
Kosmo steps up and offers Superman his robotic hand.
An honor to meet you, Superman. You have probably heard this before, but television doesn't even begin to do you justice.
From what Lois told me, we owe you our lives, Kosmo. You're a hero.
No! Just someone who found courage when there was no more to lose. Oh, sorry, was nothing more to lose.
A drone scurries over, excitedly beeping a message.
We've locked our course for Earth. Metropolis should hear the good news. Come. This is a job for Superman.
Kosmo starts to leave. Superman flashes Lois a quick smile and flies off, picking up Kosmo, who lets out a shout of delight. The drones excitedly scurry out after them. Lois once again finds herself neglected, left behind, and alone. A glimmer of uncertainty casts a shadow on her face. Cut to the giant crater where Metropolis was taken. The space arc hovers directly above and emits a spiraling beam. Metropolis, minuscule at first, descends along the beam, enlarging along the way until the city is full-sized again and safely redeposited at its original site. Cut to exterior Kandor at the public square day. A throng of Kandorians is gathered in the mainstream. Superman's giant face peers in at them through the translucent wall of the egg.
After he returns the other cities to their rightful planets, Kosmo has pledged to find a home for you. A new world where you can thrive again. A new Krypton.
Maxter stands on the balcony wearing regal robes as Kandor's new leader, Vul-Nu among the several officials at his side.
We had forgotten what it was to be Kryptonian. You gave us back our pride. You set an example for us all.
The Kandorians roundly rejoice and cheer until Maxter raises his arms to quiet them. All eyes look to Superman again.
You're one of us, Kal-El. Should you ever decide to come home, you'll always be welcome.
One of them. I know that now. Earth will always be my home.
Then you have found your way, as clearly as you've shown us ours.
Now that I know Krypton lives on, I never feel so alone. You'll always be a part of me.
And you will forever be with us.
At Maxter's signal, all eyes look to see the majestic Superman statue regally rise up from the center of the public square. Maxter solemnly raises his arm, and a multitude of arms does the same as the crowd shows its gratitude. Superman places his hand on the city's shell. He is deeply moved. Cut to exterior Daily Planet building, the roof day. Perry and Jimmy face us heading a small crowd that is gathered. Jimmy is taking a rapid-fire series of photos with his camera.
Is this a great morning or what, Chief?
Pull back to reveal all of them are watching. Superman, hovering in mid-air as he places the gleaming brand new Daily Planet globe into its familiar perch.
Now it's the Daily Planet again.
A round of applause as Superman finishes remounting the globe.
Too bad Mr. Kent missed out, huh?
He didn't miss a thing. While the rest of you are relocating oxygen, Clark Kent kept right on working. Don't ask me how. And he got this paper, the scoop of the decade. I give 2 weeks off, first-class tickets anywhere he wants to go.
Superman takes off, up, and away.
Sure is in the air by now.
Lois comes bounding out of the roof elevator just in time to catch a glimpse of Superman flying off into the distance.
Superman, wait, it's
Too late. As Lois turns around, the look on her face says it all. A concerned Jimmy is about to go over to her, but Perry holds him back, silently shaking his head. They watch Lois leave. Dissolved to exterior Metropolis, wide-angle night. The Daily Planet building prominent amid the twinkling lights of the spectacular cityscape at night. Cut to the new Daily Planet globe. Glistening in the moonlight as we find Lois under the sea once more. She looks forlorn and lost in thought as she stares at the twinkling lights. Then her eyes brighten when she hears what sounds like.
I might find you up here.
Lois spins and sees it's Clark. The disappointment shows.
Oh, aren't you supposed to be on vacation or something?
I take off soon. How about you? I'm still hoping you'll change your mind.
Perry's dreaming, not me. Not anymore. I had it right the first time. I'll be better off in a way. Maybe Superman was right all along. These past few days made me see just how much everybody needs him. Take me out of his life, maybe he'll be better off too. Clark, I need to be alone for a while. You understand.
She turns her back to look despondently out over the city lights.
Oh, I understand.
Lois feels Clark's hands fastening something around her neck. To her surprise, she looks down to see it's the crystal pendant.
More than you know.
She turns around, baffled and perplexed.
Alone is what I've always been. Longer than I care to remember.
Clark takes off his jacket.
I believe what I had to do left no room for a life of my own, so I put my own needs aside and turned all my attention to the needs of the world.
He unties his tie.
All these years, I went along thinking that was just the way it had to be.
He loosens his collar.
Finally took a machine to show me how much I still had to learn.
He rips his shirt open, revealing the S as he takes it off.
When I saw how desperate Brainiac was, how much he was willing to put himself through just to become human,
He sheds the pants and shoes.
I realized how foolish I've been. No one, not even Superman, can even afford to take a life for granted. Or love.
Lois cannot believe her eyes. She takes a step closer.
Lois, I could live in a world without powers.
Clark is about to go for his glasses, but Lois reaches out with both hands and slowly removes the glasses herself.
But I would never learn to live in a world without you.
It is now Superman who stands before her. Mesmerized, she musses up his hair. Over his forehead, the common-shaped Superman curl falls perfectly into place. Superman looks deep into her eyes, and they kiss. A long, passionate, soulful kiss. Their lips part.
Will you marry me?
Lois, eyes sparkling, gives her answer.
Yes.
Superman sweeps Lois up in her arms and takes off, turning his head to flash the quick beam of heat vision at the planet globe. A new LL+S is instantly branded in the metallic sea in the same spot where the original was burned years ago. Aerial view from high above as Superman and Lois continue to fly up and away directly towards camera. They both give us a wink just before they zoom off into the night. The end.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. That was certainly an interesting take on Superman. I wish Brainiac wasn't as horny on Maine as he was for the whole thing, but that's how it goes. So thank you all very much for joining us, and we'll see you at the next one.